Dude, I was at every Golden Moose Award show that you were winning. Like, I was there. I was in the stands, right? I was watching it. It was the heyday.
There's the drunk guy in the back.
Yeah, I was in the back. I was like, go, Chris Brackett, boo!
Full metal Brackett.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Heck yeah, man. Dude, we put a lot of food in the ground every year, seemingly more and more, and we have a ton of fun with it during the off season. There's some struggles that come with it too, though, right? Obviously, the back of my truck is evidence, right now. It's a couple weeks after I jackknifed, a 4,800-pound material spreader, as I was coming down, and it was too much weight for my truck there. But, all those struggles aside, Deer Grow really has been a staple for our food plotting process for several years now. Yes, we like to put lime and fertilizer on the plots, if we can, but there are some that it's just we're not able to get to them, or it's not feasible for us to get out of state with that stuff. And so Deer Grow is kind of the quick and easy but still super effective option for us to be able to get the most out of those food plots that we can every year.
Yeah, and we're guilty of overanalyzing things just like everyone else, but that's the best part about Deer Grow is that it's going to create healthier soils, which in turn makes better food plots. And the fact is we can simply spray plot start or plot till when we put the seed in the ground, and then when that plant starts to grow, we hit it with Boost. And we know that we walk away, when we come back, it's going to be a great looking food plot. For anybody that's looking to try Deer Grow, if you use the code HUNTR15, that's HUNTR15 at checkout for deergrow.com, you're going to save 15% on any of your Deer Grow products. It's a great way to get started on this and just see what the results are for yourself.
Better food plots, bigger deer.
And we're back.
Heyo.
HUNTR Podcast, episode 161. As Nick keeps us in line. Thanks, Nick.
Nice job. I'll do my part here.
Do your part.
Yeah. Hey, thank you guys for listening, wherever you're at, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We appreciate you guys listening sincerely. And if you want to take a minute, subscribe to our channel, again, wherever you're listening. Leave us a comment, like our stuff, whatever. Jeremy and I do see that from time to time. We're trying to be diligent about reading stuff. I know it's tough to respond to everybody, but we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you listening, and so thank you.
Yeah, we answer a lot of direct messages through Instagram.
We're trying, man. You can hit us on the website. Like I answer those, our email inquiries directly, and our, Instagram. We try. We try. If it's short, we're sorry, but it's we're trying to get a meaningful response back to everybody that we can. So
yep. Today is December 7th, Pearl Harbor.
Is it?
1941.
How did you know that off the top of your head?
Yeah.
Committed to memory?
I feel like that was a history lesson that was really beat into us in high school and stuff. Pearl Harbor Day, wow. December 7th, 1941.
Did you get off school for it?
No.
I think we might have.
No, we didn't get off for Pearl. Where do we live in Hawaii?
I got off Columbus Day.
Jeez. Well, yeah, Christopher Columbus.
How's that any better or worse?
I don't know.
Or significant, I guess.
Yeah. No, I didn't get off school. But yeah, December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day.
Cool.
Yeah, we're it's been weird. We've kind of been waiting for this late season, and it's been warm.
Yeah, well, I had a dying ambition of back to Kansas for a minute there, and it's just like a 50-degree stagnant line.
Gun season just ended there.
Through the end of the month.
Maybe today. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or tomorrow.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Wasn't tracking that. But that's kind of, I was looking for a window there, and I was in between that, and I still have an Ohio tag in my pocket. So good weather here this coming week. Yep. So, I've got, the big bean field. That's what I planted it for.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some 4-year-olds still hanging, which is encouraging for this time of year.
They didn't know die.
But it is a dilemma of man, do I go hunt them, or do I just fully embrace the fact that they could live at this point?
Do you have any 5-year-olds still alive?
Not on my property. I've got one on one of Jed's.
Yeah.
The tight rack. I'd be stoked. I'd be stoked
That's
with him.
That's a good buck to go after.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We, even next week though, it's 30s and 40s. It's still not a significant.
It's high 30s as a high.
Is it?
Yeah. It's not it's not cold, but it's colder than it's been.
Start to push them to the food.
Yep. And it's consistent. So the whole week, Saturday, we get this rain, Saturday or Sunday.
A lot of rain.
Like an inch.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, steady cold.
So we've been looking for. That's what it comes down to now is food, late season, and that seems to be the push that we're looking for at this point. So, we'll jump right in. Right?
Well, wait, let's give a bit of an intro here.
Okay. We have a guest today.
We've got a cool guest, a really cool one that we've got some recent history with. It's taken a little bit of to be honest, we're probably boy, do we have this guy on?
Yeah.
I hate the platforming I hate when people are why would you guys give this guy a platform?
Oh, I do too.
I'm That's bullshit.
I want to hear him talk. I want to talk to them. I want to get to know them.
There are guys out there that I'm just intrigued by. I'm like, for whatever reason, it's their story, it's their personality, or both. In a lot of cases, it's like, I'm interested in I really want to hear where these people are coming from.
You just have to wonder. It's like, okay, like what's this guy doing? Or like, I've now seen him come back out and do some stuff. It's like, we should talk to them because it sure seems like they have the same passions we have here.
Yeah, and so we took some initiative on this one. I kind of reached out on Instagram or whatever. Turned out he's got a place near to our farm in Illinois. We ended up hooking up, having drinks for
That's funny.
Couple hours, and I was like, dude, we should do this. Mm-hmm. And so you saw the title already if you clicked on the video. It's Chris Brackett is our guest for today.
Boom.
And he can correct me. Fear No Evil.
Fear No Evil. Yeah, Arrow Affliction.
Arrow Affliction. A multitude of shows. Like at one time, some of the the biggest shows on the
Chris
outdoor
even
channel.
said it in the kind of pre-pod here. He's an old OG.
An OG.
And it
lived through, as you've heard us talk about with like Jay Gregory and the juries and stuff, like the heyday of the TV hunting industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris is an entertainer for sure.
And, frankly, I'm excited to kind of hear some of that. As like the guy lived through the heyday of the industry and TV side, and like I'm sure it was wild.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can't, brush it under the rug. Like, dude, a lot of people, either for the first time or for the last time, heard about Brackett from like the quote unquote the poaching incident, or like the unicorn buck,
the Indiana scandal,
all of it. Yeah, I mean, I remember, dude, when that was going down, we were in Kansas, right? It was that third week of November, and we were like, couldn't believe. We're like, holy shit! Like, to anybody, I can't believe this is happening to somebody. And so it's cool. I think now that some time has passed, and like I personally love a redemption story.
I think Chris is doing some pretty cool shit right now. So that's what I think excited to kind of hear his journey, because I mean, like, why not? Like, see where this guy has come from, and then to what is he into now? I think a lot of people are really intrigued that have followed along outdoor television and entertainment for so long, to be like, what is Chris Brackett into right now? What's he doing?
He'll get a kick out of this because he's listening here to our intro. I'm sure he's like, dying to not be able to chime in here. Just we'll bring in a minute here, Chris. But when I reached out to Chris on Instagram, it was one of those things. I was like, I mean, what the heck, sure. Like,
well, it could easily have been like, yeah, get bent, guys.
Well, so we talked about this. We had a good laugh over it. I was like, hey, I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to, get to know you a little bit or something. And he gave me a very Chris Brackett-y answer, like you don't know how many people are pursuing, all the way down this line, and it's just, a front basically. And I was this close to being like, whatever, dude, get bent. Like, and fortunately, we both had like the wherewithal or something in us. We're like, got us to a point where we're like, we should make this happen.
Yeah. Let's have this conversation.
And I'm so glad that we did, because I think a lot of Chris at this point, just in a few hours of conversation that we've had, and he's a very nice, genuine person. He shoots it straight just like we do, and so I'm excited for you all to experience this conversation.
Without further ado, bring in Chris Brackett.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. The cool part about the front, as you call it, is the wall. I don't trust anybody. I sure as heck don't trust anybody after the incident, right? So I made you work for a little bit. I mean, I've really had the Ranellas, the whatevers, the podcast. I don't listen to podcasts, to be honest with you.
But you do one now, Chris.
They all reached out, man. They reached out right immediately after. Waddell was out spouting his mouth, trying to make it for his agenda, going, oh, well, Chris Brackett, nah. And I just went, if anybody wants to talk to me, one, they're going to have to wait till I'm done serving my time out. And then number two is that they're just going to have to show me who they are. I got to do a little research anymore. So I liked what you guys were doing. I knew that you were younger. I knew that you were full of spirit and passion, man. Just like Uncle Ted, when I called him the other day, he was like, I'm the greatest podcaster ever. And that was like 5 minutes of my life the other night. And I was like, all right, well, maybe I can be number two, so I think that's the adventure that we're on. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah.
Now, why don't you have an E in your name?
Me?
Hunter. Right?
Yeah.
HUNTR.
We figured it was taken, I guess.
Yeah, it was too common of a word to file intellectual property over.
It's kind of a lazy, it's cooler, right? It's kind of like Hunter.
I always wanted to ask that. So now that's out of the way. It's fun. I like it.
I think there was another fishing brand that inspired it along the way. We're like, oh, it's kind of cool how you did that. It's just kind of a shorter, condensed. It's cleaner. It's cool. Sharp.
Cleaner. Yeah.
It kind of just stuck. Cool. Dude, what's it been? Almost 3 years now.
3 years in January.
Holy cow. It's been about 3 years now, Chris. We've been cranking these one a week, every week, with some bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I saw your clip and I went to like search it on Facebook, because that's what I'm on, Facebook and Instagram, and I literally typed it in a bunch of times and I couldn't figure it out until all of a sudden I realized like you're Jared Hunter in my phone, so I remember it in my brain that there's no E. And when I talk to people, I just talked to a bunch of guys today, and I'm like, listen, you need to go listen to these guys' podcasts. They love to be controversial, but at the same time, very intelligent. I told Jared that if he wasn't selling land and doing this, that he needs to be a journalist, because he asks the right questions and he's just on it. And I was like, man, this is fun. Yeah. Like, it's good to see passion. Even if you guys don't like crossbows, even if old people like me got bad shoulders after shooting a bow 9 million times, and I don't care, you're still not shooting my deer on my property. I'll blow them up with a piece of tannerite if it's legal, if it's legal, right? So if it's on my property, it's gonna die by whatever means necessary as long as it's legal. I'll hit them with a truck if it's legal, man. And I think that's the fun part about owning your land and being in America, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I appreciate the compliment about, the reporter. He gave me a really nice compliment at his house. He's like, dude, you're like one of the best reporters I've ever, dude, it's in my nature. I'm sure my mom loved it growing up, but it's just like inherently I'm a rule breaker. And because of that, I question everything. I'm like, well, why? And what do you mean? I'm like, I don't think that's right. I think I can do it this way. There's that Steve Jobs quote that, that you were a big fan of, and I know our buddy Steve was a big fan of for a while. That kind of resonates with me to this day, which was that the world is created by people no smarter than you.
Yes.
Man, it's like, dude,
I just really love it, man.
Yeah.
I really love the fact that you guys are uncovering rocks. You guys have a nostalgia about, I don't know, maybe it's the Pennsylvania traditional type stuff, like you guys are really asking some really good questions, having me on, but more being intrigued by the new stuff, the old stuff, and like where baiting falls, where feeding falls, where different states and rulings and whatever. I mean, I think just asking the questions does so much for the world, and no one's ever seen this side of me. I don't, if I do podcasts, I put on my little TV act and do whatever, but I am an OG, man. I used to sleep on hotel room floors, and when I got my first Golden Moose Awards, Waddell tells about he's the hardest working guy in the industry. He said it in front of the entire everybody at the Golden Moose Awards, the Outdoor Channel Awards, and he's just like, that's the hardest working guy ever. And he said, nah, I mean, and me and him we were going to do a cage match because we hated each other. There was a beef, and this is after that. This is after all of that, man. And he's like, man, I watched this guy for 5 years sleep on people's floors in their hotel rooms, and eat whatever I had to, peanut butter and jellies in my truck, because I wanted to be in the industry because of Howard Hill and Fred Bear and all people that were entertaining people, but at the same time they were doing what they were great at. And that's where I felt my passion for what I wanted to do. And I think you guys are on track with what you're doing, and I just love it. I just hats off to you.
That's awesome, man. Chris, part of us, I think, hopes that, or thinks, I guess, that these discussions are happening a lot with other hunters. There is no platform for them, right? So like,
I know they are. That's why it's resonating. That's why we're getting any traction. Well, dude, we don't want to be controversial. It's not like we set out to be controversial. Like, hey, let's highlight on topics like crossbows and baiting. It's just like inherently, because of our passion for the sport and the issues that we're experiencing in states that we hunt, it's just like, boy, we're too young, and I've got too much invested in the future of like our careers as deer hunters to like just let it die. And so, yeah, we're guilty, I think, of harping on some of that stuff a lot. But
it's because there's no solution yet.
And I'm hopeful that we can inspire change, at least by conversation. If we can be having these conversations, like our last podcast was with Mike Rex, the chairman of the Ohio Wildlife Council, the guy who sits over 7 other people who together make decisions about bait or no bait. in Ohio. And like,
yeah, I saw a little bit of that.
What a huge conversation to have, even if like he's not going to just say, "Oh, Jeremy don't want it. Here we go."
Right.
But if we can have those conversations,
and the dude looked good for like 60 something years old, right?
yeah.
Like he was
stud.
Yeah,
Absolute beast. Kill it.
Right. I looked at him. He's like, "Well, I'm whatever age," and I was like, "He's doing something right."
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Me, as soon as I got in trouble, man, my beard turned white. I gained like 40 pounds, and I just was like, stress is a real deal. Dude.
Funny enough,
all of a sudden, everything had been Superman and being Batman in my life, it was like my shoulders gave out, everything. But the government coming at you, man, is a big deal. The government coming at you, and you losing 99% of the people that you thought were your friends, and you thought that were paying your bills and sponsoring and this and that, and all they were there to do was just
shake it down,
ride the wave. And they were riding the wave, and as soon as the water got a little rough, they were gone, and they left you to die. And everybody will leave you to die except for your mom. Remember me saying this: if somebody grabs you and holds you underwater, you will do whatever to not drown. And I understand that the rats will do that, and they will spout off whatever they have to survive, but your mom won't. And that's about it, man, in your life. And your mom and your wife second, but everybody else, they will not drown, and they will give you up. And then there's some of us that are just old school OG enough to go, you know what, the buck ends here, pardon the pun, but like it stops here, and I'm not going to even talk about it. If you're going to come after my family, if you're going to come out after everything that I have, that I've worked for, and you don't even care about me as a person or the truth of what happened, because at the end of the day, the Indiana poaching incident, I killed 2 deer, but they don't know about the third one in the whole story of things, because nobody cared. All they wanted to do was send me to jail. They wanted to send me to jail. They wanted to have somebody knock off their high horse. They wanted somebody that could, whatever, at a certain time was, top of the industry. My butt had 5 or 6, there was 5 or 6 people that were the top of the industry that were fan favorites. It was Ted Nugent, Jim Shockey, my dumb ass, and at Waddell, and then give or take whoever that next person was. And man, I was 20 something years old living the life. I didn't pay myself. I didn't pay myself. I paid other people, and I just lived the life, man. I lived out of my truck, and I killed everything on the planet. I killed more stuff than a veterinarian, bro. And I was ready to and just ride it. I didn't know how long it would go, but I love it. I mean, I want to tell you guys whatever. So you have free reign right now to ask me whatever you want, whatever direction for the next couple hours to go. And shout out to the HUNTR Podcast crew out there that are listening. I just think this podcast thing done correctly, the way you guys are doing it, is the wave of the future. It really is. It's a way to educate. It's a way to talk to men about their generational sin and talk about real stuff. And it's fun to talk about the stuff that you are talking about what is going on in camps across the country, outfitters, and in garages across the country, drinking Busch Light in the Midwest. And I don't know what beer you're drinking out there in PA, maybe some Yingling or something. And these conversations are happening. You guys are taking them to the masses, going, let's discuss it. And if we don't even accomplish anything in Ohio, doesn't change baiting or feeding laws, or $1 for non-resident and $2 for resident in Illinois, or whatever that happens, I think just having the conversations means that we're at least we punted the football.
Yeah, we're trying, dude. We're trying to have a conversation. We're trying to get people to talk. I mean, there's nothing in this country that's ever turned out well without some sort of debate, some sort of questioning, some sort of back and forth. I mean, the fact that we're all going to just sit here and shut our mouths, nothing's going to get accomplished.
Well, it's hard to hide behind a 3-hour conversation. I mean, there's a reason Joe Biden's not been on a podcast, right? Because, like, imagine what would happen. It's like everybody would know.
Yeah.
And so
right.
I've got a lot of respect for people that will, have the balls basically to get on this kind of a format and have an open and honest conversation. And I mean, people. Mike Rex is one of them. Admittedly, I think he's got a place of, a position of power politically, and like he's got
there's a filter there,
stakeholders to please, and there's a filter that's up, and we get it, but we hope that Jeremy and I clearly don't have one, right? Or as little as we can. I mean, we're biased about some issues and stuff, but so anyways, I admire a lot that you would come on and open format. So
Chris, let me ask a question, because I think you started off there in a good spot. Obviously, kind of being one of these OGs in the heyday of the industry. I've been in the industry for a long time on the kind of the back end, the marketing side. And I've talked to a lot of producers who, frankly, to my face would tell me that, they were an entertainer. That's what they did. They were an entertainer. That's how they got paid. And inherently, I guess my questioning is around, like, do you do it because you're an entertainer and you make money, or do you do it because you love hunting and you love the outdoors?
To that question, it's really easy. Let me give you guys a real on the inside looking out, and then being the way I was, which was different in every format and every way, even in my life, even from this conversation is as real as it's going to get it. Looking at me, people that have broke bread with me or went to war in the trenches with me, essentially in life, they know me like this. They know that they can only handle 3 days of Chris Brackett, maybe 3 hours, but you better be ready because it's full throttle. I mean, it's Full Metal Bracket. That's what we were going to call the podcast. But what you're saying is so true. You have two pieces. You have on one hand, you have the people that hunt that want to go, dude, I'm making $37,000 a year. I'm making maybe 70,000 welding, whatever. I want to go figure out how I can go get paid to hunt. And those are the guys like, back in the day when you had HS, Hunter Specialties, and Primetime. I can still probably recite to you most of the words of all the VHS tapes, of all the prime times, of all the monster bucks, but prime time is my favorite. And you had guys like I forget Mitch's last name, but you had these guys from Minnesota, kind of partners of Lee's and Lukowski's and stuff. Those guys that started back in the day, and then those guys were my friends. And these guys were just hired killers. They would have to kill 5 to 7 deer between. They just had to be mature. They just had to be big deer, and they had to be in them dang giant cedars of Iowa, and they were paid X amount of number of dollars, the dream job. They all had businesses, but they had the dream job of 5 to 7 deer that they went and killed, and they sucked on TV, but they were stone cold, stone faced, nothing but the facts killers. And that's where they were hired. They never wanted to rock the boat and take somebody's marketing job. They never wanted to do any of that. They just wanted to kill the 5 or 6 deer. And they wanted to hand in that footage, and they wanted to get paid X, and they were hired killers. Then you had people like, Randy Birdsong and these guys that were on the old Extreme Whitetail DVDs with Miles Keller and everything they did. And that's where Don and Candy really shined. And all of those guys were doing all their things. Well, those were still hired killers. None of them were actually hired as entertainers. And then what happened with me was I loved killing stuff, man. I still love it. 2 does that are hanging that I'm getting ready to cut up, and I invited folks I don't know to come over here and help me cut up, learn how to do meat, and take it home. But and that's one of them things from biblical point of view that you don't show one hand what the other one is doing. I'm just telling you simple facts, but those are the kind of things I love to do, pour in, because I don't have kids to teach, right? And on the other side of what you're saying is on the entertaining side is you have the entertainers that you still have them, man. They're the ones that they dance the dance. They like the fancy stuff. They just like the fancy side of it, and they were entertainers. And those people, both sides of that, you never actually got to know them. None of them spent 11 days in Harrisburg, putting up with the Harrisburg crap that would get in your lungs. And me, I loved being at every trade show, whether it was the Illinois Deer and Turkey Classic, the Wisconsin Deer and Turkey Classic. Man, since I was 18 years old and was skipping school to go be there at 9 o'clock when those doors opened. I loved being there and people and whatever that was in that room, that's what I wanted. And so for me, it didn't have anything to do with entertaining, didn't have anything to do with even hunting or being famous or anything. I just wanted to be in that energy of these new creative products at the very beginning of everything going on and being developed at that time. And there was so many times where I would buy from S&P Scents with whatever his name was. His name was Scott, and he had a deer farm, and that he was collecting piss that ran down these troughs. And I would buy the piss from him, you guys, fresh, and take it there and lose money that I didn't have, back in, this is back in 1995, 1998. I would buy this deer piss, and I would take it there and I would sell them, and I would still lose money. Like, I just wanted to be in and around it. Not I had the greatest deer pee or that I had this. I wanted to be in the same room. I still have in the other room a card that the first time I ever went to SHOT Show, I had a card that said my name. It said videographer, and it said something else that was just very vague, and had my phone number on it. And I have a mule deer printed on it. He saw it on my fridge, and I handed it to people, and I said, my name's Chris Brackett. Just remember my name. And one day we're going to work together. One day we're going to work together, and we'll know each other, and just remember my name. And that's how I met every person that would stop in an aisle and meet me. And so, going through my entire career of Aeroflation, Fear No Evil, Top Shot, Sons of Gun, Discovery Channel, History Channel, all these things that I did, and then doing 27 national shows in 2 years on the Outdoor Channel, winning Lee and Tiffany their first Golden Moose Award. When people go, is he really an OG, and is he an entertainer? Is he a killer? Man, I love to do it all, and I still will kill anything and go anywhere with y'all, as long as we're not going to we're either going to bro out on a hunt, which is what you guys kind of love about camps, doing the dad thing in Kansas, or you're going to just be in Illinois and hunt whatever bucks are rolling on that property and rolling through that beautiful property you guys got in Illinois. And I mean, those are what really separates the outlook of what the crap you got going on when you look at the industry. And even now, a guy could come to me right now, and I could sit in this room right now, and I could write him 10 episodes. I could write him exactly how to shoot the episode. I could tell him how we're going to edit it. I could tell him how we're going to do the pilot, how we're going to buy the airtime, and how you're going to buy it from Mitch Petrie, and programming, and how you're going to do this or the internet or whatever. I can write you those episodes just like I did Josh Bomar at Deer Asset Classic over 10 years ago, when he said, I want to be a superstar. My wife's got all these things. My wife's got all this, all these followers for our nutrition. This is one angle. We're taking this to the next level with social media. And I was like, I got like 100,000 people organically, but I don't even know what this social media is. But I can tell you how to produce a piece of content that they are going to love and watch, and it's going to be controversial. And if you do it, you're going to win. You're going to win as far as what you want, as millions of people following you. And he took it to he took it past where I think you should take it, but that's a whole nother opinion, but that's my opinion. And I got him on my phone. I got 1 million texts, and I tried to help him through his whole poaching incident and all of this stuff. And then he just turned into whatever, man. I don't know. Steroids get to you. I don't know if he's on steroids. Allegedly, he could be just drinking birthday pancake, whatever that protein is, but I don't know much about that. I'm fat and old. I don't know what that is. You'd know about that, Jared. Like you got the guns on you.
Oh yeah.
Jared straight guns.
I'm more of a Tractor Supply, like frozen water type kind of guy. But well, dude, I'll tell you one of the things that, like, to answer your question too, like, dude, when I pulled into Chris Brackett's driveway, like, first of all, I'm like, I don't know what I'm getting into here.
Well, and I mean, you've been you work for me, so you've been in the industry. You've seen some of the behind the scenes.
Well, yeah, and so, but to your question about, are you a hunter or are you an entertainer? When I pulled into Chris Brackett's driveway, the telephone pole at the end of the road is rubbed to a pulp, and you can't see the house because it's hidden behind like 6 or 7 foot tall, beautifully maintained CRP fields.
Switchgrass and miscanthus, like you can't see him back here.
Right. Yeah. And so when you pull in, like, the front yard is brassica. It's a brassica field. I'm like, where's the grass, bro? But it's just basically right into the food plot.
Brassicas, alfalfa, clover, sorghum, and corn are all within, like, you almost run over it on the driveway.
Yeah. And like throughout the evening, it's like we're getting to know each other. He's like, oh, there's my 2 doe fawns. Their mom got hit the first day of gun season. And, they live here. This is where this. It was like the whole herd's accounted for, and like, I'm like, okay, Chris likes to hunt a little bit.
Yeah.
Well,
I really like to raise them. I mean, I'll drink their blood. Like, I'm not scared of the kill part. But the fact is that I like watching little critters, and those ones that I get real close, like, I consider those one, we're after the big boys, all of us in this room. I don't know,
sure.
Nick hunts or whatever, but we're all after the big boys. But you got to have the bait. You got, you talk about corn being the bait. Well,
sure.
I got 45 does that eat in the yard every day, and I'm strategic about how we don't put them down. The does I killed are on another farm that has to be maintained, and that's a whole cool subject that I've never been into doe management. I mean, Illinois is shoot a doe so the herd won't grow since 1987, and they gave you tags and promoted it, and then the HD hit, and then everybody started killing everything, and it's like I don't know where I fall on it. I really don't know where I fall on the doe thing, but I do know that the park that one of my farms is next to has entirely too many, because I haven't shot any, for 3 years sitting out, but prior to that, I can't remember the last time we shot a doe. And when your farmer says, this is an old Uncle Bubby rule. When the farmer says, man, we got too many deer, listen, either you're going to do it or he's going to do it.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it, you're not going to kill the button heads.
Right.
So you might as well be the one knocking down the does. And so that's what happened the other day. I'm like, I'm going out. Boom, boom, boom. They all started dying. It was really fun.
No doubt.
And I remember what I loved about hunting.
Yeah. Well, your situation's like a little different, and it definitely should be addressed on like a neighborhood by neighborhood. Even when I was sitting there at your kitchen counter, you're like, here's a 1,000-acre block. Here's what this can produce. Here's a 1,000-acre block. Here's what this can produce. And that really
look
is
at the 10,000-foot view, and then you can break it down from the outside in, and then you just single file. You know, I had a conversation the other day about how many deer are on your property. He's like, 15 every sit. And I'm like, you do know that those are the same 15 that are on your neighbors, right? In Illinois. And I don't think people realize how small the deer herd is, really.
Yeah.
Especially this time of year, as we lose all the Russian olive and autumn olive and things like that, you can really see through the timber, and you're really going to find out who's got the food and how many deer you actually have, after the season. So what were you saying?
We've been talking about that a lot recently. I mean, somebody bring to our attention like a statistic basically that said that the Illinois deer herd in total is down from the early 90s, like 40 or 50%. That's based off the harvest number and off the
vehicle collision.
Deer vehicle collision. I mean, I
I
haven't looked into. Go ahead.
The DNR will lie to you though.
Okay.
Like they will just absolutely put out these numbers. As we know, politically, they will put out the different numbers. But if right now we don't have the technology with this thermal drone stuff that you guys talked to that one gentleman on, I know he's not even a hunter. I reached out to him as soon as I saw it because I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's legal in Illinois. Instantly, the first
you're talking about Mike Yoder?
Yeah.
And with that technology right there, you could do what Texas has been doing for plus years and truly take an aerial understanding. And we could fund it. Between Land Life and Hunter, we could take a block. I got the block. You guys got the block out there. We could take a block and we could pay that guy in the off season, completely legal, and they could go and we could do a true testament to. Let's start with Illinois.
I mean, dude, I want to buy one. Like, I'm on the fringe of buying one for this reason.
I assume they're going to, right? Like at the state level, they're not. Though.
Within
the next year or two, they're gonna hire drones to do.
Illinois does not care.
They don't want you to know. They do not. If they collect the data like that, then they don't want to have to tell you what the actual factual data is. That's why it's all the estimates.
Well, we're going to find out. I mean, dude, everybody's got a thermal drone now. Did I tell you that my dad was like, oh, yeah, there's a guy at church. He bought one. He offered. He's going to come do it for free at our place.
Yeah, I'm going to buy one.
Go.
I was like, yeah, fine, great. I'd love to know.
The only way that we're going to get factual data out there is this type of thing. We're going to have to go do it because the state isn't going to do it and tell you.
Why don't you think?
I love it, dude.
Why don't you think the state wants to know?
I mean, just like anything. Think of anything that they put out there becomes some sort of subjective discussion point. Your inference on the data they give you, they may say, hey, listen, there's plenty of deer out here. Look how many we found. And you may look at it and say, what are you talking about? That's no deer.
And you think that's because they've got an agenda? And so the numbers they're putting out are...
I don't know. I don't.
Everybody's got an agenda. Otherwise, we wouldn't get up in the morning.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think
my agenda was not to fight with my wife today and then make it into a creative state to get into this office while selling real estate and whatever. And we joke as a fight because we're both still kids, man. Like we may be in our 40s, but we're still children living together, trying to be married and been together for a long time. But like when we wake up in the morning, my goal is not to fight with my wife about something that's going to mess up my creativity and go, baby, you're like retired. Go do whatever. Go take care of the moms. And so my agenda every morning is to not fight with my wife, get something to eat, make my phone calls, do my stuff, and figure out some way to make an income and educate and do cool stuff every day. Because I'm not a grown up. Like I don't have any kids, And so we have agenda. So the state has an agenda. Mm-hmm. What is it?
No doubt.
Is it honorable?
And does it require you to hide information to do it? I mean, that's why I'm asking. It's like what? That's quite why. Why would they do that?
Well, I mean, it's just like
why would you not want to know?
So let's put it out this way. The reason that the state throws out a number of deer, right, is because us as hunters want to know a number. What they throw out there is not factual.
And you've got you got your $2 state, right? Illinois, right?
Yep.
This has been a big discussion on you guys' radar. So if they give you factual stuff, next thing you know, you have some points that now will move that to them if they can get that revenue from the residents, right? So the thing about the $1 state is why wouldn't the residents get $2 and non-residents get one? Well, because you guys have to pay $500 and something $100 per tag.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make sense in my blue state, right? We live in Chicago, Illinois, right?
Yep.
We're just downstate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's truly what we're getting voted in with all of our laws. It's not the southern part of the state. And I choose to live here still because of my family. But other than that, I probably wouldn't because of that. Like you have a state that's got the top third of it is getting riddled by three sub CWD, non-proved CWD stuff, but leave that to Higgins. Let him argue about stupid stuff like CWD and the agenda of the whatever. They got a boner for that stuff. So let them go do that. I'm just saying that the top part of the state, they want to go kill every deer that literally walks. Why? You're telling me it's not the number of humans driving cars? Like, come on, right? And then how that thing keeps creeping down here. Okay, if they're doing it up there, why aren't they doing it in the park that I live by? Why aren't they doing it in all this stuff? Like, why isn't it coming downstate? It will, but they lose too much revenue.
Sure.
I mean, that's there is an agenda. And so what do you guys think the agenda is? Like, what do you think it is? Like, I know what it is here. It's insurance driven, and it's where the populated areas are. And that's north.
The insurance one is interesting. We talked about that with might have been Higgins.
Skip.
Maybe it was Skip. We're just talking about like, hey, makes sense that the insurance companies want to, limit vehicle collisions and the payouts that they have to issue. But then they were like, well, they just raise the rates. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but or they do both.
Yeah.
Or they do both. And it's like, I can see incentive. I mean, there's all kind of people that have
incentives really
manipulate the deer herd.
Well, yeah, I mean, even in a state like Illinois, like I'm sure, the farming community has a massive impact on deer numbers. Like your farming community doesn't want deer.
No, they don't. The Farm Bureau's they're gonna be one of the biggest stakeholders in any agricultural state for sure.
I mean, deer damage is massive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, they don't want deer, which to Chris,
but it is area specific.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it truly is.
Yeah, I mean,
they're making up on the lease numbers. Like right now, I get no less than a couple dozen messages per week, either on the real estate side or just messages on Instagram or Facebook where, hey, I think I'm looking for a lease next year. I'm like, yeah, me too. I got 3,000 acres to hunt, and oh, really? There's another farm up for lease. Like we're all looking for it, and I've got a list of people that will pay triple for it. So it's funny as things. I think everything comes down to memory in life. Somebody's memory and integrity and character is really what comes down to defining who they are, as far as even a farmer or the agenda that's coming from the insurance company. So if the insurance company decides that this is going to be their 5-year track, we're just in year 10 of it, and it's carrying over. Nobody's driving the bus. It's just on its way. And you're like, oh, okay. They get a little bit of that momentum. And then they get the farmer momentum. All of a sudden the farmers are like, well, a year like this year, I made more off my lease money for my deer hunters than I did.
Sure.
Some of my crops and some of these hilly grounds with a really low PI. And I think they're all just buses going down the highways and no one's driving them. And then if nobody's driving them, you can't even argue with the bus driver. You can't argue with the agenda of it because it's not being driven. If they're just in play, they're like lights left on, right? Your kids, like they're just lights left on, and you go in and be like, would you guys shut off the light? There's nobody in there. That's Illinois.
Yeah,
they're all in Chicago or they're in Springfield. The lights are left on. They're tabs on your computer that are left open, and they're just run off the rails, man, and nobody's driving them. And then the guys that are coming in to sharpshoot them all winter. I mean, one of the things that I don't think people realize when we start arguing about what's best for the downstate of like in Illinois, I can't speak for anywhere else. I haven't traveled in quite a while, but Illinois, the way it is up where my buddy's at is, there's three gun seasons all weekend long after 2 firearms, 1 muzzleloader, and 3 more gun seasons into January. And then the signs come up by the DNR saying, shooting area, big orange ropes, flags, piles. These are like 1,000-pound corn piles in the middle of Illinois parks. They shut down the park, and for 4 weeks every year, the same companies and the same hired sharpshooter companies that some of these guys I hunted with that then went around politically and got these bid jobs that are government,
like the
jobs.
white buffaloes of the world.
Do what?
Like
What'd you say, white
one of the
buffaloes?
companies is white. That was what they were called.
The sharpshooting company.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know, but like this guy I hunted with, and I'm like, you do what? Like I should have taken a job with him 20 years ago when I met this guy, but they will go in and they're the ones that kill all the deer between the outer part of the zoo and the inner part of the zoo.
Yep.
You know, all that ground that's in between a lot of zoos, and they'll kill them all. And they were telling me stories about how they would paint them pink, and they would chase them, and they would shoot the last one all the way to the front, and they'd leave the one that's pink, and it would run around. They would go on islands with helicopters, and they killed everything. And he would tell me how they strategically did it. And these are the people that are now getting these government jobs. It's been going on 20 years on islands and prisons and all the state facilities between the outer wall and the secondary wall. There's always wildlife. That wildlife needs to be wiped out. And so now these people are the ones that are being hired for the Illinois state parks. And then some of them are just like, old state snipers or whatever, the SWAT teams. And they're going in and they're killing every deer, buck or doe or fawn, doesn't matter, whatever eats that corn pile at night with thermals and doing it at night and killing all of them. And this is happening this year and has been happening for 10 years, and it gets higher and more rampant. And their goal is not to, they will tell you that it's CWD. And that's what they say they're doing. But why are they wiping them completely out and they're still CWD? Like, that's not my argument. My argument is, why? And then here we are having conversations of like, well, let's get the deer to 5 years old so that they're big and fancy. Why don't we just go ahead and figure out how to, and we can talk about this later, but push through this and get to a point where all the deer are dead. And then now we just go ahead and set out some new genes and shoot 200-inch 2-year-olds, and the Don Higginses of the world that loves the 200s are killing them at 2 years old. Cause clearly it's not about age. It's about fancy, and fancy is 180, 200, whatever it is, whatever it tricks your fancy, whatever. But that is what is happening in the northern part of Illinois. And they're preparing for it right now. Like my buddy's like, dude, I got this weekend for muzzleloader, and I got 3 more gun seasons with any weapon. And as soon as I kill, like, let's say I go buy 2 CWD tags for $5.50 a tag. They goes out, shoots his 2 deer, loads them up, goes to the check station, still a check station. As soon as he checks in those deer, they issue him 2 free tags, 2 more free ones. He goes out and fills them. He can do that as many times as he wants in the entire northern state of Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, that can't be CWD driven. That's got to be other agenda driven.
Yeah. I don't want to go to jail again, so I can't say.
Sure.
But not
we
that I
spent
went to jail, but it was funny.
Again.
I mean, we spent all kind of time speculating. We don't know, dude. I mean, it's like clearly,
it just sucks, right?
Yeah,
What's ridiculous?
Clearly, our voices as hunters, I mean, are not. There's way more of them than there are of us, and it's like, yeah, we enjoy the resource, and like, I want them to be big and fancy, selfishly, but I'm. One of 2 or 3%, or 1 or 2 or 3% of the entire population.
But even in that standpoint of a wipeout, the fact is like them baiting them and those deer are a public resource. That's not their deer.
Oh, and they're hunted in these parks, guys. This isn't just in a reserve. These are hunted state parks that guys, from that area, they come, they park, they sign in, they go, and they get in there, and then they rock and roll, and they hunt all season. They're not gun hunting because they're in proximity to houses and stuff, but they're all bow hunting them all year.
Yeah, and then the
DNR comes in and wipes them out. Why would they pass a deer that walked by them?
Yeah, it's not going to live.
Boy, I mean, if he was out there, I would love to talk to somebody that could sit and proclaim like, hey, we've had success with CWD management, like by killing them. we've done all this stuff. We put millions of dollars into, hiring, sharpshooters, and we've done all this stuff in northern Missouri and northern Illinois and yada, yada, yada. And it could be out there. Maybe I'm not researching hard enough, but like, is there any evidence? Meetings. Is there any evidence to say, guys, it's working? We're achieving the goal here. Remember, we said we're going to do this. Here's some evidence that it is working.
So they have a very blanketed. It's just like this piece of paper right here. All of them say the same. All of it just says the same thing. Every one of them. And you go to these small area meetings about each individual space, and whatever that piece of paper is, that's their definition. That's their research, and they blanket it over every single thing. And we don't have the research to go ahead and, there's no research out there to go ahead and combat that or even go for that argument, and so I don't know, it's a disaster, but here we are trying to figure out how we can, keep our neighbors honest and keep our neighbors in a deer management point of view, to where we're trying to get the deer older and the herd better, and the whole thing that the state's like, well, just let me in there and I'll keep your herd better. It'll just not be non-existent,
I know.
And so
that seems to be the metric of success. They're like, well, hey, good news. We killed them all before CWD could.
Right.
And we're like,
it's like AIDS.
Oh boy, good.
Well, and I mean, to that point, like, I know northern Missouri has paid, and probably non-hunting landowners, but it's paid landowners to have access to their properties to do CWD shoots. Meanwhile, the property next door, the dude's been managing his ass off.
Well, that's exactly what's happening.
To try to kill 5-year-old bucks, and his neighbor now has a 1,000-pound corn pile in his yard, and he's getting everything shot.
That is worst case. I mean, because we talk about this. That's it. That's the fear. You're like, well, maybe we just all get CWD. Maybe it just happens. But like, the state is going to interject before it gets to that point and say, don't worry, one of your neighbors will agree to let us come in and kill all of them.
Absolutely.
And somebody's going to be
one
like,
of my best friends on the planet is dealing with it right now. His line is surrounded on one side by one of these shooting parks, and it has been a personal goal. He hired me for a consult. I went up there when I was first starting out doing these. We became best friends. It's one of those things where clients become friends faster than friends become clients, kind of thing. And so we went up there, and our goal has been, how can we take these deer away? If we could take these deer away from sharpshooter, corn pile at night, state, after the season, if we can correct their numbers and keep these deer alive, then I can do this anywhere on the planet. And so his goal right now is to get 4-year-old, 5-year-old deer, and he's doing it and keeping the DNR from actually killing these deer, because they all live on him. And in the late stuff, and so it's working. Like, there is ways to combat it, but again, you're fighting the government. Like, when do you win? And with the CWD stuff, I just shouted out there when you chuckled, as far as you're like, well, it's like, it's like these deer with the prions and the CWD and all the intricate weavings of all that of CWD is, they're not necessarily dying from it. Buck. What was it? Boone and Crockett went after me because there was an article like 50, me getting in trouble wasn't the first time that I was targeted, and people go, oh, well, he wasn't targeted, you poached. Okay, great. I'll tell you the story here in a second. But at the end of the day, you are targeted when you have a voice. You gentlemen are targeted whether you know it or not.
We know.
The bigger you get, you're on it.
Yeah,
and it'll come heavy. It'll come down on you heavy. But I was targeted in a phone call that was as easy as reaching out. Back then, it wasn't like Instagram, Facebook, but I had a guy reach out to me, email, and he wanted to have a phone call. He asked me about deer. He asked me about TV. He asked me these really light questions, and he asked me one question before I got off the phone. And I answered the question honestly with a gentleman that started in Wisconsin. That he was 80-something years old. I was bear hunting with him, and he told me and Danny Borland a story. And for 3 days, I was the most entranced person into the story of raising deer and whitetails in the CWD. This guy spent his life savings, millions of dollars. He moved to Missouri, and they followed him there, and he went after these deer. And if I remember all the names, you would know who they were, and they went after him. And his conspiracy theory list was out of this world and most of it, I believe that you could prove in today's day and age that you could prove that it was true, and how it became. And then like how even going into CWD rabbit hole is like the nuclear stuff that was going on, where these animals came from out in, I believe, New Mexico or Arizona. And then like the whole story, like there's so much of it that's now coming to fruition. But I went on the record after getting the information from this guy that has spent his life defending CWD, that I went on the record with Boone and Crockett, and they wrote this giant hit piece on me. This is 15 years ago, that I went on to say that it doesn't kill them. Like there wasn't at the time a proven piece of paper or anything that documented a CWD animal dying by CWD. They always died of pneumonia. You know, like my uncle died of AIDS, HIV. He was HIV positive. I know it very well. This is when I was in high school. I lost him, and I knew how that happened. And these deer were dying from other things. They were not dying from CWD. And I went on the record before anybody wanted to hear it. And I got smoked by that. But I loved it. I loved it. I loved getting beat up.
Well, you're saying that was 15 years ago. I mean,
made money.
For 15 years now, Chris, everybody's been like waiting for the evidence or for like the bottom to fall out. It's like, after Mike told us about these counties, I didn't know that there was counties in Ohio that are
northwest of Columbus.
Yeah, it was part of our baiting discussion. He's like, yeah, there's CWD counties, so they don't allow baiting. And so I looked it up, and there's like an article on there.
Where are
the
fences? Where are the fences in Ohio?
What do you mean?
Where are the fences?
High fences?
The majority of fences are north of Columbus, when Eskers and them, all them, and old Mr. Captain Red Moon, what's his name?
Adam.
That I've been friends with. Yeah, Adam. Where do you think all the 200-inch deer came from? Everybody's backyards, all over Pinkerton and Reynoldsburg, whatever. Old G right here was watching the planes fly over, landing at the Ohio airport, hunting with the Eskers and all over 20 years ago. I was saying to them, why aren't you baiting? It's legal here. Why aren't you baiting in October? And Adam was killing his 200s there before anybody knew who he was. And we were all on the team Blodgett together out of New York. And this is when we first all came in the industry. If they're really saying that about CWD and where the reports are, go and check on where the first fences were. Go check on where all those deer were imported at and why they're able to say that. Because if they've been able to prove the CWD is in these fences, it's really easy to go, oh, you got a fence up, you got CWD.
So you're saying
and
farms.
If you just slaughter
just
them,
for our listeners, you're saying
again.
Where are the farms? Where are they bringing deer into? That's what you're saying, right?
Well, wherever those are, right? That's where
gotcha.
the hotbeds are.
Yeah.
It's a real easy way to go. We've already proved they're in fences.
Same with northern Missouri.
To prove they're in the wild.
Northern Missouri was loaded with high fences.
Absolutely.
Loaded.
So you're going to see a pattern. And this just isn't, people, the greatest thing about me getting in trouble, y'all, let me just say it. It saved my life, number one. But number two, I wasn't just a talking head. I produced them. I produced the shows. I hired the right producers. I did all this stuff. So what you're getting now of my memory and my knowledge and how much I loved wildlife, this has been my passion for a long time. So these things I'm saying are not just, look, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole. I'm not going to fight these fights. I'm exhausted from life. Life beat me up. I've done everything I've ever wanted to. Yeah. So this information that's coming out of my mouth is just literally information. Take it, run with it, do whatever you want. But this is information that I'm handing down going, if you look at the correlation with some of this stuff, this is absolutely legit. And there has to be something to it. Someday somebody's going to fight it. Someday somebody's going to do something with it. And so I don't mind talking about the information that I heard or I understand in the back in the days, looking at it 20 years later. If you look at those high fences off the northern side of Columbus, when you're driving on the east side of the state, I mean, those things have been there forever. And that's where all these, you're telling me does didn't happen to get out in Illinois, in the east side of Illinois, where there's all a bunch of cornfields where people raise deer for 20 years. You're telling me that these deer didn't get out in Ohio and some of these does don't get out. Cows get out all the damn time and they're worth a lot of money. So these genetics, I just say we should just put genetics out there and let these deer get big and be fancy at 2 and 3. And then we're out of jobs. We don't have any more discussion anymore, and then it's about like, well, what's the new 500-inch world record? Let them.
That's an interesting consideration. I mean, why don't they?
It's just fancy.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't disagree. I mean,
I don't want to see that necessarily because I think it conflicts with like the wild. But at that point, at a certain point, it's like they're so
deer have for sure gotten out, right? I mean, there's no hiding that.
I know guys that have shot them. They've gotten out and shot them, thinking they were. Brian shot one.
Well, in like what was it, 2 or 3 years ago, that kid killed that giant in Kansas that got out. I mean,
it happens.
they get out all the time, and I'm sure several of them are.
I am not like who I was one day back in the day where I would fight you on this and say,
Sure.
I am this. You're this way. I don't care what you do. Stay off my land.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do. You want to get an abortion? Get an abortion. You don't want to get an abortion? Don't get an abortion. But I'm not going to help you do it. Like, I know where I'm going. This isn't my home. And then, like, where is my energy wasted, or where is my energy spent? I think it's helping men understand what they're actually hunting for, and if they're hunting for their soul, if they're hunting for meat, if they're hunting for whatever. I think a lot of that is where you guys' traditions from back in the day, it was just to get your buck and bro out with your family in PA. Like, some of the greatest, deepest rooted traditions come from those dudes at Harrisburg that I watched that grind in a factory for 35 years, 40 years, generationally, West Virginia, these places like that. I mean, that's the reason why everybody hunted. And then I think people forget about it. And then, listen, I love to have the discussions of the big fancy deer and the pins and the whatever and this and that. But when somebody goes, hey, let's go hunt together so we can bro out. No, I'd rather do it by myself. I'll take you golfing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can bro out as much as you want golfing. Like, we're not after the same deer, or we're not after this. I think men just need to, it's all up here, and they need to get rid of this. I got a buddy, Joe, that's been here hunting some of Kirk's stuff and whatever. And I put every mature deer we have in front of him, and he passed them all. And I was like, why are you passing him? He's like, doesn't score 160. I'm like, you ever killed a 160? No. I'm like, so you'd kill, if I could put you at my house on my farm and I could get this 2-year-old 160 to walk out, would you shoot him? Absolutely. I'm like, well, there we have a problem. Would you kill him if you could hunt him with a crossbow? And would you kill him with, where does it stop? What if I gave you a rock and a slingshot? Would you kill any deer? And he's like, yeah, dude, just to kill a deer would be a goal. I'm like, now we get into traditional archery. How big does that deer have to be? Me personally, I'd shoot a 1.5-year-old with a string that I've got sitting behind me, probably right back here, the kids' bows, but I'd shoot one with a stick and string that was 110 inches. And then if I'm using a crossbow or a bow or a gun, like, I'm an equal opportunistic predator. I'll kill them with anything. I'll hit them with a truck if it's legal. I meant that.
So Chris, I mean, when we talk,
I love all of that, where we're going with all of it, but the CWD thing is a very strange,
for us too,
strange coincidence.
I agree. So Chris, when we talk about like the big deer side of things, we've hit on this at a bunch. I think the kind of full circle we've come out here recently with is, man, back in the day. So clearly, like, when you were in the heyday of OG outdoor TV, like, dude, killing a big deer was cool as shit. Like, it was awesome.
125 Pope and Young, you were the man.
I know.
Like, literally.
Right?
If you were killing Pope and Young whitetails on video with a 3-chip GL1 camera, a 3-chip PD 170 came out, when we had to weld up our own arms and we were shooting freestyle and whatever, buddy, you shot a 125. And Jay Gregory and like everybody that hates everybody now, Jay was a fantastic guest, was he not? I saw clips.
Oh yeah, I did. We had a blast.
That dude is a savage. Don Kitsky is still one of my favorite outdoor TV killers, because he doesn't give a shit about outdoor TV.
He's a farmer.
Farming.
He's a farmer.
He's a farmer, dude. And Candy's the fun personality and and whatever. And Lee and Tiff and everybody, like, everybody was a salt of the earth. And the problem was no one had done it. And so as everybody became Realtree and Mossy Oak and they all got divided in Pepsi and Coke, and all of a sudden I'm like, God, I wanted to be on Monster Buck so bad, until David Blanton was like, man, we're just not going to put you on here. G Willikers or whatever he says and whatnot. And they literally ruined me. And I did not want to wear Realtree after, like, they told me no, I couldn't be on Monster Bucks because I was just too flashy. Like, everything I did.
That's what they told you?
Too much. Oh, dude, they go deep. Every story, every person. You could bring up Stan Potts. I watched him. He's got an eye thing. I watched him talk to John Masakia, owner of Muzzy. First story I ever seen, ever had experience at the ATA show, was him telling a story to John Masakia trying to get Muzzy money. He's sponsored by Money. And he said, he's telling this story and he's just going. And John Masakia looked him straight in the face and he said, damn it, Stan, look at me when I'm talking to you. and I was just like, that set the pace for the next 25 years of my life on how hardcore and messed up everybody was in this outdoor world. And I should have walked then and went and started selling land.
Yeah.
But like that was his boss drinking beer. Stan was trying to tell him all these cool stories about something. And John he was just a funny cat, man. And he said that, and they were buddies. And then Stan's like, oh, dang it. Hold on. And I was standing there holding a Corona, looking up to these guys. This guy owns Can you imagine this? 22 years old, standing there looking up to, well, not looking up to Stan, looking more down like this at Stan. And John was actually shorter too. And dude, it was the funniest comment I still have ever heard to this day in the outdoor industry. And they all laughed about it. And the whole bar was there and everyone was getting along and nobody was being assholes before social media. And everybody wanted to make cool outdoor television, man, make cool products. And archery was on fire and all this stuff was on fire. It was the greatest. It'll never be like
the heyday of like ATA show and stuff like that was so awesome. That was, I was a young 20-year-old kid walking into like the ATA show with companies, and like it was awesome. It was everything I thought it was going to be.
And there was money everywhere.
Holy shit.
And you were in marketing and you were in control. When I started flying stuff, dude, can you imagine being 25 years old and them just sending 2 Triton boats with a 120 Optimax motor and all this stuff? And you're just like, this is mine. And they're like, yep. And it was all, I remember when I started flying fish and I called Joel Maxfield he's still saltthirsty. He's one of the dead. You want to have somebody on your podcast? Joel. That dude has killed more stuff than Winter. I mean, he has killed everything and he's a savage and he's the nicest guy. And he just takes it all with a grain of salt. He knows more about archery and arrow flight than maybe anybody I've ever known. And so I called Joel and Joel was like, dude, if you're doing cool stuff, like here's our budget here. And I had all different bows because he knew I would test them all, and golly, man, it was unbelievable. And that was when Catch Us If You Can. And I was on the Matthews staff and on the commercial. And I thought it was the coolest guy ever.
I mean, dude, it was the coolest stuff ever. That industry was,
there was so much money.
It was just, it was bumping at all times. Like to that point, like ATA SHOT Show around like the round bars and stuff. You walked around and there's Don Kiske, there's Chris Brackett, there's Michael Waddell. Like you just walked around and but everybody was you could just talk. You're just shooting the shit. And it's completely not like that anymore.
I mean, dude, to the point where, and it's kind of depressing. Like look at, and Chris had said earlier, imagine everybody want to get paid to hunt. Like,
yes.
Dude, it wasn't long ago that like we even, whether it was jokingly or we're like, dude, pro staff things getting out of hand. Like everybody wanted to get paid to hunt. Who didn't? That sounded like the coolest job ever. I'll be honest with you. Like within the past couple of years, you don't really hear that anymore. Like,
no,
it's kind of sad. Maybe it was annoying while it was happening, but after the fact, it's just
part of it is nobody cares about big. Cool, you shot a 180. Nobody gives a shit anymore.
Well, it's more because of what has happened to the industry. It was climbing, and outdoor TV was like such a big part of that. And then once that all kind of collapsed, and it's like, the digital network thing took over the networks. Outdoor Channel and Sport, they're still out there. But
yeah, but the content on it has changed dramatically.
The viewer-ship has changed.
Back to one rule.
The viewership
goes back to one rule. What did I tell you about that content that time? What I tell you about that content, about my rule when I got in the industry was one thing. I knew that America's Funniest Home Videos, right, was America's Funniest Home Videos from the day it started till the day it ended.
Yep.
And it didn't matter if you filmed with, if you didn't matter, I don't know what's Bomar shooting turkeys in, like 932 million feet per second, frames per second, shooting turkeys or whatever, right? Or if you filmed it on my farmer's flip, right? It didn't matter as long as somebody hit somebody in the nuts with a wiffle ball bat.
Yeah.
It was content driven.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't matter. It didn't matter. Like my ass got in trouble at least once an episode for shooting slow-mo and shooting slow-mo and showing too much blood. Like Arrow Affliction literally was created to disrupt the industry, and Intermediate at that time when Mike Carney and those guys hired me, it was literally to disrupt the industry and break the stigma. And they literally would go, when when I had 2 tickets. I had 2 tickets that one was not calling in a deer in time in Illinois when we changed from a check-in station to a call-in. So next morning I called it in. They said, no, the harvest was that day. And I said, well, I didn't find the deer till midnight. And the guy here, Jeff Bales and Sandman, like these were tough old school Illinois game wardens. First run, they were after you, like you were getting a ticket. You had to go fight it.
It's 10
And
o'clock,
like
right?
Mike
You
Carney,
got to call it in by 10 o'clock of the day you kill it. Is that right?
right. And so I didn't find the deer till 12, and I didn't know if it was dead. And I had a night picture on a cell phone, and that picture was at Presley's Outdoors. And the game warden rolled in and was like, why does he have a picture in this field at night? And I called it in instantly the next morning, because bow hunting, I had 24 hours next day, right? And gun season had just switched from, I shot him with a muzzleloader, and so it falls in our firearm season. And it came down to the fact that it didn't have time to expire, or when was harvest or whatever. But I couldn't defend myself when they only gave me a ticket. Like you just paid the ticket. So like Mike Carney and the pros and the big shots that were in charge of my paycheck when I made arrow fliction for them, they literally said, just pay the ticket, $75. And so those set the precedence to go, he's got 2 tickets before this. He's got a fishing violation because he shot a turtle in the head, shooting arrow fliction, and almost drowned getting it. You can't shoot turtles with an arrow. And I'd called the state and they said, yeah, you're fine. And now they changed the law because of that ticket.
Wow.
They had never had that ticket. It was unprecedented. So Illinois, you can bow fish for snapping turtles. And it was because I got this ticket. And so I got a fishing violation for shooting a turtle in the head at like 47 yards in this water, swimming out, grabbing it, bringing it back. First episode of arrow fliction, my ass got a ticket. So like those were the 2 tickets I got, which led to when I got in trouble. And in Indiana, it was $75. It was a $125 fine. I want to keep the deer, but because I brought the deer home, it was then all of a sudden charged with felonies. And then, all this stuff is public record. If anybody really wanted to go deep, they'll see what I signed guilty to. I pled guilty to it, and I realized real damn quick it had nothing to do with what I did. It had everything to do with what it did to the industry when you took out one of the dudes that didn't give a shit. Like I was out there just having fun and on top of the world, and they knew I was poor. I never saved any money. I didn't buy a house. I lived in a teeny tiny house, and I spent it all on the people that end up betraying me. I gave them jobs. I pulled them out of trailers in the middle of New York. I gave them all jobs. I gave them everything, and that's all I cared about was my art. I was Picasso, but I had both my ears. I don't know. Like I just loved making my art. I still love making my art. That's why the food plots look so perfect, and it's I don't know how we got to this point, but this is I'm ready to talk about it.
Let's get into it.
It's just it's a messed up world, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, but everybody hears shit third party, so like let's hear it from Chris. Like, because obviously this is a situation that like, admittedly, you're like, okay, yeah, I shot a turtle in the head, didn't know, had to pay a ticket, right? Same with the deer thing. Okay, had to pay a ticket. And
I would have done the same thing. Hey, pay a ticket, move on.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, what are you going to do? Fight it?
Exactly.
$75.
Yeah.
But they wanted to make an example.
I had never, like, still to this day, I've never, anybody that, this is where they ran into a roadblock. When the feds, they hunted me for a year after I got indicted. And if you guys don't know what happened, if you could look it up or if you've seen any of the memes, by the way, whoever made the meme with my face on Colin Kaepernick's GQ cover, that's the best meme. Look, I was perfect for memes when that thing, you guys had to be in Kansas. First off, you're like, oh my God, this dude's life's over. I wonder if somebody's going to put him on suicide watch, which is what everybody said. But anybody that knew me went, you can't kill this guy.
Yeah.
Like, this guy don't quit.
Yeah.
Money doesn't define him. Doesn't matter if he killed a big buck. He's going to go shoot one. It might be a 120. Like the guys that knew how I was and the people that had been around me, and the people that had even been using me to promote their products and to pay me. I was a dancing chicken man on a hot plate. And even those guys were like, this dude's built different, right? You can't do what I did from nothing and coming from a poor kid in Peoria, Illinois, with, father abuse. And the fact that I didn't have a needle in my arm and I wasn't an alcoholic, you can't kill a guy like that flipped a switch and decided that he was going to go love life. You can't kill them. And I was favored by God, even though I didn't know the gospel, right? So everybody's first thing was like, oh, he found Jesus. He's going to pay his ticket and do his time. And he found Jesus. And I'm like, dude, I saw God in every inch of antler that was ever grown in the middle of the summer, with every bird call and every bugle. Everything that I had ever done, I saw Yahweh, I saw God, but I did not ever see or know the gospel. I didn't know how actually that Jesus truly loved me for my sins and my generational sin through my father and through his father before him. And this all tells into the story. And I believe anybody that has, number one, has character, right? Character is who you are without when people aren't looking. And then what you learned and how your memory, we talked about memory earlier, what your memory is for things and how you react to things in life. So decisions that we make based on character or morality, or where we fall in definition of something that has to do with the law, or we think it's just that it's okay, it's wherever it falls. And so I got in trouble for, I wish I had the paperwork. I probably could have got the paperwork and read exactly what my charges were, but it was 5 years ago. When did Jody?
I was going to ask you.
It was 17?
4 or 5 years ago?
2017?
Mm-hmm.
2017,
That sounds
I
right.
think I was 2000. I think it was 2018 I was indicted, right?
Yep.
Which would have been 5
That
years ago.
sounds right.
I've
We
had
were in
2 deer
Kansas.
seasons, and I had a half that I had to sit.
Mhm.
And then the incident happened 4 years and 11 months earlier, because the statute of limitations ran out at 5 years.
Wow.
Coincidence, right? So right now, 10 years ago plus.
Wow.
11, 12 years ago, right? So the things that I was judged 4 or 5 years ago for and gained my life and lost everything, was I was indicted with 2 felonies on the Lacey Act violation. One was a felony charge. Now I don't have it. Let me tell you the end of the story. If you got to go into work and you're shutting off your podcast.
Oh, they'll jump back on, dude. Don't worry. They'll listen through it.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Oh, dude, it's almost fall. You and I are both going to be in a tree stand with brand new Hoyt bows. We're going to be shooting the RX-7 carbon bow this year. I know Hoyt's also got the Venoms out, both equally smooth shooting, quiet bows.
Heck yeah, man. And we got a convert on our hands this year. We got a lifelong crossbow guy with a vertical bow in his hands for maybe the first time ever, a good friend of mine. And we've got them all decked out with the inline accessories, from the QAD integrated ultra rest to the quiver. And also he's got the SL sidebar mount with a couple of stabilizers from Hoyt as well. So that's going to be a 6 shooting bow.
Yeah, and Hoyt's been cool enough that anyone listening to this can save 20% on any of the soft good apparels online using the code HUNTR, HUNTR, no E. And if you want to look at the latest lineup of Hoyt bows, check out your local Hoyt dealer.
Get serious? Get Hoyt.
Okay. I am not a felon. I was charged with felonies, and one was Lacey Act violation, and the other one was a conspiracy to commit. Okay. And these are the 2 things that I was charged with instantly on October 18th or November 18th of whatever, 2017 or 18. And that's what I was charged with. I was indicted with that day. But a year earlier, almost to the day, a story broke and a piece of footage broke after, and I have the phone. I should have showed it to you that day, Jared, but the people that I had hired, and give them the credit to say their name on here or whatever, the people that worked with me, they had stolen a piece of footage. So stolen actual video footage. So if anybody doesn't know, you go film all over the planet. You've been filming for 20 years of your life. You've got all this footage, and then you hire somebody, and then you have this footage that comes back in. And then when you have this footage, you go through it and you make episodes out of it. I would write the episodes. I would say, hey, here's your creative, whatever you're thinking with this, and make this, and then train this. And this is how we did. And we were successful. Aerofliction, Fear No Evil, all these things. And, the backstory about all this I will get really in depth. I'd love for you guys to be on my Land Life podcast, Chris Brackett's Land Life podcast, and then we can go in depth on some of those other stuff in the story. But the main thing is that a piece of footage was held back from 4 years earlier on a thumb drive, one clip. And the clip is what you saw on the internet before I was able to pull it down. Most of them pull it down. Some of them are still out there. But that clip was of a untrained intern that was with me at the time, and
I've met this person too. I've met this person coincidentally.
Oh, this person's a psychopath.
Yeah, I sat across the table from
this guy deserves to be in. Huh?
I sat across the table from this person. They were working for a different content producer at the time.
Oh, it's not the guy he thinks of, is it, Jared?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Salvo's the great one.
No,
Salvo. No, you talking about Salvo?
I'm talking about
Salvo Magro was an intern that was with me.
You can say it. We'll cut it off if we have to.
I don't remember his name. He was the guy who was behind the camera.
No, Salvo Magro is great. One, pizza maker. They got a pizza place out in New York. He's got an amazing heart. That dude needs to be in Hollywood. He is an entertainer, dude. He's not a good cameraman. He's not a good marketer or anything like that. I have told him, and everyone told him. Now, he's not the one that sold us out. That's why I don't mind saying his name or whatever. Like, he would love the promotion. He was a good guy. He was with me. I haven't talked to him since the incidents, but he's not the guy I'm talking about that ratted or did or stole anything or whatever. He was
guy
just
I met was a cameraman.
place, the wrong
time. For the guys out east here.
Yes.
Yeah, it is still or no longer?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, kind of came and went, but you met him, and by happenstance, because it was between now and then. So
it wasn't long after
between 2017 and 2023, you were out with these guys, and like it just came up. You're like, oh, you're the guy.
Yeah, because the video had, I think, just gone up, and Chris,
the
you
video
probably
had
pulled it down.
Everything was skewed. Nobody knew that it was Salvo.
Of course.
And Salvo at the time was living with us. He actually found my dad after he'd had one of his strokes before he passed. Salvo was living at my dad's, and I was trying to train him up, but the whole time I'm like, listen, dude, you need to get in a car and drive to Hollywood because you will be a superstar. I still believe that today. If you're listening, Salvo, go to Hollywood. I apologize for not giving you a Golden Moose Award when I gave everybody else one, but you were really hard to handle, bro. But that was my bad. I'll give you one of mine because I don't really care about them. I'll give it to you now. But he should drive to LA right now. Go be a superstar. Anyway, so that gentleman was just interning with me. Okay. He was in a blind with me. And we were staying at the guy's place. And the guy's place that you're around anything. When I was talking earlier about what your conditions are and what you're around, you show me the 5 best guys that show me the 5 guys that you're around. That's what you're going to become. And at that point, man, I thought I was still just a piece of trash from Bartonville, Illinois. That's how I treated life, and that's how I treated other people, and that's how my father beat me and treated me. Why wouldn't I treat people like that? So I got a Chris Brackett story. I'm like, well, you're probably lucky that I either didn't, have sex with your girl or fricking punch you in the face. Like, that was as aggressive as it was. Like, you either liked me or you didn't, but I wasn't scared of my sin. I wasn't scared of my sin. I wasn't ashamed of my sin. I learned it that way, generationally, and I was fast to punch somebody in the face. I think about it all the time. I'm like, I don't know many people that are either one of y'all's age that really have ever punched somebody in the face, or like the rules changed in school. When I was in school, you punched somebody in the face. I think I had to sit in the hall, dude. When y'all got there,
you got thrown out of school.
Got expelled.
Like, you were never going to that school again. So, I come from a place where I walked down the street with my pellet gun and I killed everything that moved in my neighborhood. And if I did that now, I get thrown in jail and committed and whatever. So it was how I grew up, and I looked younger than I was. And so, man, I was not famous yet. So you got to do the math on how long ago it was, because everybody thinks, well, when you get a record contract, you go here and go straight up. And they kind of look at my career and go, oh, that's the Flying Fish guy. This guy went from being a guide to straight up. But they didn't realize that I did Brackett Outdoors and all this production for decades before. It's what I had done production and filming and editing my whole life. And as I produced all this stuff, these people like Salvo and like the other guy that leaked footage just to be cool to be around it, that really I didn't do anything wrong with, but it did not help my case with the bad footage from the way people took me. I used the R word and I said retard on it. And it's not an excuse. I have autism. I'm Asperger's, but to me, again, who are you around when you say it, right? I have friends that are, handicapped, and I there was never an excuse, and so I'll publicly apologize for using that word. But at the end of the day, there was I never opened my mouth to apologize. There was nothing I could have said to hurt the world, to take back what I said, because of the world was so in such a place that they didn't care what I had to say. They really didn't care what I had to say. I was a superstar for them. I played it up with my Fear No Evil tattoos, my Aerofliction tattoos, and I was the character. I was my life. I loved it. I loved producing it. I loved making it. I loved my fans. Even with Asperger's, man, if you don't know anything about being autistic, sometimes I don't like people. I don't like patty caking, as you can tell. I'll tell it straight up. If Bomar doesn't like what I said, he's going to have to come here. He can't sue me. I didn't say anything wrong. I know where my lines are. Stan does have two eyes that go different directions. I'm not saying anything that people don't already know. I'll say it to their face. I'm friends with them and they should know exactly where I stand. These are just all the flaws and things that we have as people. And I'll just, tell it how it is. I'm not using the autism or whatever as a whatever. I'm still just discovering it and understanding that is why I had so much hate in my heart, because I didn't understand who I was and that I thought differently and I did stuff differently. And so as that progresses down that way, I never publicly apologized for just calling the kid that clearly wasn't developmentally challenged. It was just wrong. There were other people that had, use it every day right now.
Oh yeah.
And you can get mad about whatever, should have called him a fat F, and I'm like, no one would have cared, right? They were just like, that Brackett is mean. Well, I'm 6'1", 270 right now. But when I was in my prime, man, I was 245 and did not care. Black hair, sideburns, driving a big jacked up truck with my hair on fire, flying all over on people's jets, killing stuff across the country. I was living the American dream, right? I mean, that was it. When guys and girls got, broke up, their girlfriend went after me because they knew they'd piss off the other guy, and I was slutty. And I would go sleep with that hot chick and whatever. I mean, this was my life. I was a sinful, deep, sinful Midwestern man. I didn't care about drinking. I didn't care about drugs, but my father taught me how to go after hot chicks. And that was my sin. And Uncle Ted talks about that. Uncle Ted was very far past me as far as the sexual addiction, but I would call mine a sinful sexual addiction with hot women. And the cooler I was on outdoor television, the more hot women was around there. You can ask Waddell about that stuff. It's a bad temptation. Life's tough, man. I went through a divorce too. I mean, it's a sinful thing in every day, whether you're famous or not. But if they give you if they give you everything, you're going to just take it. And I think that's where everything comes back to. So me and Salvo were in a blind and I messed up. And when I messed up, I'll talk about, I was not famous yet. I did not have a contract with a Mossy Oak. I did not have a contract with all these big companies. I was fresh out of Aerofliction, where I created that business and that business model in Aerofliction for Intermedia. They paid me $30,000 a year, but they made me famous. I was the guy, Aerofliction, spiky black hair and tattoos and shooting stuff out of the air. And yes, I can shoot aspirin out of the air. It's real. I used to film it, not like Dude Perfect, but I used to actually shoot whatever arrows you saw on TV. I just grabbed a camera and everybody has their thing, man. Me being autistic, if you know anything about Asperger's, you know who Elon Musk is. Well, I just didn't give a crap about rockets. All I cared about was an arrow and creating my art through television and pictures.
Well,
that's
Chris,
what I did.
That's what I was going to ask you, dude. Because, I mean, obviously that's how I remember Aerofliction and Chris Brackett, is this dude who could shoot anything and everything with a bow. Like, where did it come from?
So I just could always do it.
Really? Like just
you gotta understand, like, you know, well, you don't have to understand. My dad used to say that you gotta do this. No, you don't have to. But if you want a look, and I think there's somebody listening right now that goes, man, my kid might have it, or I might have it. What I'm gonna tell them is it's okay. But so autism as a giant spectrum, and the spectrum's not like, you know, from here to here, right? The spectrum's in circles and all over, and 3D and 4D. And when they say the spectrum, so somewhere on there, I have a photographic memory. I have a right brain that can produce some of the coolest TV and pictures that that anybody could ever imagine, right? I've won the awards, and I've done that. No award mattered to me. No amount of money mattered to me. None of this stuff mattered to me. All I want to do is keep making art. So, so the photographic memory, along with, I remember every piece of dirt and every animal that I've ever killed, ever. I remember all of them. And I remembered every this is why I said memory is such a key thing to mental, I think, to understanding mental health. Like, I remember me and Jared's conversation. And then I know he does because of how he asked the question. And that is one of his superpowers. So people that have autism have, and I told him, I go, are you autistic? Like, are you? And I go, dude, you might be a Power Ranger like me. Like, I'm blue, he's red. Like, there are people that I know that when I found out that I had it, I go, if I could find like 5 other people that have it and they have different gifts like me, but we understand each other, like, so he's probably not. This isn't about him, but I'm gonna have fun with it because you're cool with it, right?
Yeah, bro. Go.
Like, you're cool with, like, the fact that you're cool and kind of cool with everything. So he remembers everything, but like, it's probably not easy to make him mad. Like, make him mad where you like wreck
not
his
at all.
day,
No,
right?
I know. I know for a fact.
So,
I've been around the guy for 10 years, like every day. Like, you can't.
So for me, you have to, the only ways you can make me mad, you can call me. That's why I would call somebody the R word or whatever. Like, I didn't care about those things. The only way you can make me mad is, one, trust, which was broken on this situation, right? So it's all about justice, which is why, like, an Elon Twitter, not because of money, they were lying. So when it comes to lying, it happens to be those type people. They have their superpowers in 3 or 4 things, and their photographic memory and their visuals and all their stuff. And then they all hate justice. They all hate injustice, right? And so in that, you have all this stuff. Now, you would go, have you actually been to a doctor and diagnosed? Trust me, you want to live at my house for a week, you'll go, this crazy bastard, he's 1000%.
Oh yeah, it took me a couple hours.
And then when you go, hey, I think I have this, and the rest of your world for the last 20 years goes, I knew that 20 years ago. And then my wife's like, well, why didn't you tell him? And they go, tell Chris Brackett that he's autistic. Like, and I'm like, oh no, he loves the truth. You got to tell him the truth. So in this whole thing, that's kind of why I had a heart for Salvo and those kind of misfit people. My dad had this, I think my dad was the same way because it's genetic. And but my dad was really a recluse, and I think he battled it, and it wasn't accepted back in 1950 for 2000, whatever, when he died. And so he battled that with alcoholism. Well, I battled that with shooting stuff and creating my art. If I wasn't doing those 2 things, man, that was it. I didn't care about money as long as I had a place to stay. And so the people like Salvo and these really creative people, they were my dudes. I was building my little superpower team, but I didn't know that I couldn't change them. I couldn't change their hearts. Some people are vindictive. Some people are they just can't beat the white trash out of them, man. You just can't do it, right? And I think, you know, you just have the people, and I really believed in, number one, I believed in the government. I believed it was honest, and I believed in justice and the American way. We were all beat that into our head in the 70s and 80s in school. I believed in it. I thought everybody was a great person. I thought everybody was like me. Half the people don't remember what you talked to them about, and then they'll just deny that you ever did it. That's how they get out of deals, right? I remember every word, and that's why when somebody would go back on something that I remembered photographically, or they would hurt me, or they would do something, it would trigger me to want to break their face. Right. And so I went back and went, oh my gosh, This has been going on for 40 years. That's why when I say this, what happened really, it saved my life. It saved my life in the fact that I was almost married a girl in North Carolina, that whole family, everything I had there. I loved her, she loved me. And then that situation didn't work no matter how bad we wanted to because of families, because of what happened. And you really can't change reality sometimes that the world is showing in front of you. And then I found the woman that I had always wanted to be with and had been with, my wife now, and she hadn't dated anybody the whole time we broke up, but we were together for 15 years. And then we've been together another 3 years after we got married. And we put, we had found Jesus. We had found, the gospel and knew what it said. We put our lives in on hold as far as the sexual relationship and worked on our basis for what we wanted for marriage. And we had never done that. We had lived in sexual sin, and we had, all this upbringing of how we looked at life. And what was any different about that than hunting? If you're if you know if you're having all these doubts of, where's your conviction lie? Well, if you're not taught anything, how are you going to be convicted about it? So me not knowing the gospel, that was really rough on my life with sexual sin brought by my father. And a lot of people are like, what the hell does that have to do with the damn deer and the poaching incident? Well, it has everything to do with decisions that you make in the character. Because I don't think that it was that I shot deer. I think everybody would shoot the living shit out of deer if they could shoot them. Um, and as many as they could if the consequences were very small.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that everybody would drink all the beers and eat all the baby back ribs and have all the sex. That's from a show. I don't even know this movie, but they can have all the sex and have all Sodom and Gomorrah stuff. And so it just goes back to the decisions you make and who you were as a person. I have been bold my whole life, and I have been truthful my whole life, and I have, trying to surround myself with people that I was trying to help because I couldn't help myself. And I just happy I don't have a needle on my arm. And so those things led to my decisions as far as a killer and a hunter and what ended up happening. So you got to imagine. So here's a guy that I've done the flying fish thing. I've created a sport out of stupid fish jumping behind a boat. I did 10,000 copies of a DVD out of the basement of my dad's house. My wife had got a divorce. She had cheated on me, and we had got a divorce and broke my heart. And so I lived in my dad's basement and out of my truck with a camera, a GL1 camera that I bought $3,500 on a credit card. And I'd created my art, and I had built everything, and then started doing the flying fish, and then created that, then won Golden Moose Awards with Lee and Tiff and all these people, whatever. Then they give me Aerofliction. I take Aerofliction to the top. I won't compromise my values and morals of what they want me to do because they just wanted me to sell out. They wanted to create a really cool show and have me sign. And if you knew anything about Aerofliction, they tried to put another host in, and the host flopped because he didn't have the heart. Like we didn't do it. I didn't do it for money. I made 30 grand a year, and I'd lived off that. I was living with Jody at the time, and she was making money. And so she made it possible for me to do all this. And we started guiding flying fish and making videos and everything. And then did Aerofliction and walked away from it. Shockey offered me a $350,000 contract to go do his brand and help him produce Uncharted because Brandlin had never produced an outdoor television. And he still says to this day, this guy's the most arrogant guy out there. But in Shockey's definition of Shockanese, he thinks arrogancy is great. And that's okay. But that's what he thinks. It's that and confidence. And you could call him up right now. He's a great guy, but that cat is so eccentric and how he sees everything. And I got books of Shockey stories, but I turned them down because I had just been screwed over by Intermedia.
Right.
And Shockey actually offered me this giant contract, and I went up and I helped all this stuff. And so like I was living the dream. I did everything. And all these things I will want to talk about on further episodes with you. And then again on Land Life, my podcast, shameless plug. I want people to go, but I want to do stuff together with you guys. But Chris Brackett's Land Life on all three categories that you guys are on. But that's why I'd love to have the kind of questions you guys ask to be able to do this on mine or yours and dive into these little micro segments. And I told Shockey and Greg Getchow to get bent and walked out of Shockey's Indiana Jones archives in his house. And and had dinner with him and Corey Knowlton, and it was me and Eva and our whole team. And I passed up opportunities like that to do my art because I didn't want to be controlled. Waddell's gone on record to say that I passed up more of these giant opportunities with the Shockies of the world, whatever. If you ever interview him, ask him about these. Like he literally said that this guy, because of the talent I had and what the drive I had, and the no kids and the no mortgage stuff, that I had the greatest opportunities in the world. And he said he would have been bigger than me or Shockey or anybody because he had all the support from everybody. And and that was just a testament to why I wanted to do my art. And it's a roundabout way of going, I was doing my art. I didn't care about the deer. I didn't care about the whatever. When you're killing deer the way I was killing big deer and just lots of animals, you get really desensitized, I think, to life. I think you get desensitized to hot women and barbecue ribs and alcohol and drugs. I think everything that can be overindulged in and not set on the altar before Jesus, that he died for our sins. I believe all of that stuff is get emotional, man, thinking about it because of how heavy it was generationally with my dad and just holding that sin in for so long. And really, you're convicted by it, but you really don't know how much that you're convicted by it because you know something's wrong, but you don't know how to get away from it because of those 5 people that you're around. And now the core unit of people that I'm around are, man, they're good for me. They root for me, man. They help me every day, and they don't help me for monetary gain. They want me to win. They are fired up by some crazy idea that I got that they're like, that's just unbelievable. Like, do it. And the support system. And I never had that in my life. And it wasn't until I just forgave my dad one day because I realized that he didn't have the answers either. And that's a lot of what my podcast is about. So if this is touching you guys, in some way, man stuff, man, act like man, iron sharpens iron, go check out my podcast. I get more in depth with it, but it's about that generational sin that leads to the decisions you make and the people that you're around. If I had it to do over right now, my red flags would have went up, not with a salvo, not with the producer that stole the footage. It would have been on the hunt from the person that invited me on the hunt in Indiana. That person, if I met them now, instantly right now, I would go, man, here's a couple things that I can tell you about getting your daughter or whatever into the industry. And I know I could see the end goal. I just really thought I could help that person.
Mm-hmm.
And I poured my heart out. It talks about in the gospel where you just guard your heart. And I just didn't guard my heart, and I had no one to watch my 6 or help me make decisions. And if I would have said something about, if I would have been like, here's what I got. Hey, Jared, help me out. Hey, this is what I got. I got this guy. This is what they really kind of want. This is where I'm at, whatever. And man, as soon as much of my 6 that had just been like, how do you feel? Like, let's pray on it. Like, how do you feel about it? Whatever. Right. And I wouldn't been there.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have been there, and I wouldn't have been in that situation, like they were, you like this is the Midwestern Pennsylvania thing. They're good people.
Right.
Good people. Now, but they're not. They're sinful, black-hearted.
Yeah.
This isn't our home. Don't know the gospel type stuff. Like they're not doing it as a favor for you. They're doing it for a favor for them. You're just being used, and so that's fine. But where I was at, the person I was staying with, they had a corn pile behind the house, and they were watching out the window with a freaking scope, a thermal scope. And they did it all hours of the night while we hung out and we stayed at this house. This was on the property. Now I hunted the other side of the property, but that happened. That was real. That happened. It happened. And that was every night. And so that tells you the kind of mentality I was at the camp. Let's say camp I was at, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the property. And that's the mentality there. And in that area, they were known for being rough, right? And things like this. And so I would not be there today because I would be wiser. I don't know. I think it might be the white hair or whatever, but I would be wiser. I wouldn't put myself in that position. I am not blaming him for that. I am saying I am wiser now. I am slower now. What is my life really worth? And where is my energy? And at the time it was like, as long as it wasn't drugs and it really wasn't alcohol, I would consume it.
Right.
Chicks, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Like I had 2 out of the 3, and deer and filming and and footage and creativity and art and oh, this is cool. And this guy, wow, hey, if you got a big deer, like I'll come hunt this deer. And so that's what I did, man. And put me in a situation where I was hunting property. And the first night in during gun season. Now this is one, I'm not famous yet. I am, but I'm not making any money. I'm not on top of the Outdoor Channel. I'm on top of the Sports Channel, if that tells you where I'm at. I don't have any $100,000 sponsorships with Mossy Oak yet. I don't have any $75,000 sponsorships with ScentLock yet. I don't have, my airtime still costs me $250,000. It's not 50 grand because, I'm a superstar yet. I'm on the cusp, and I'm filming a season ahead before I go in to my big breakthrough year. And, and Zach Brown paid me $250,000 to $200,000 to license my name. And then even in that situation, in the middle of that, I was like, this isn't right. What he's doing isn't right for us. And so we split. And so I was in the middle of a real turning point in my life when the incident went down in Indiana. And as I was in Indiana and I was there at this place that I probably shouldn't have been because of the they were the same type of people, man, that I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, and Bartonville, Illinois with.
That's hard to get away from, man. It's all you ever knew.
It's all you knew. It's the same way as like most of the property that y'all hunt in Illinois. I was either on driving deer at one point or like when I was in high school, whatever. Was it legal? Dude, I can't tell you how many people that we hunted as a group that we just had tags. Back then, you ate every deer and it was for meat. And if somebody shot a big buck, or it wasn't even about big bucks, it was, hey, you got your buck, you got your deer yet or whatever? And we would fill Illinois tags. Everybody. How many tags we got? Well, I got an extra doe tag. My dad would hardly hunt. And I'd call him and be like, hey, there's a doe in front of me. This is back radios. Like, hey, I got a doe in front of me. And you're like, oh, well, we'll shoot it. We'll go home. We'll go home from Adams County, slug gun. We'd all come down, pull it. We'd all take all the deer home, all to the garage. Everybody would cut them up. That's the way we learned, man. We just filled tags, party hunted, and it was illegal. Was it wrong? I mean, it was wrong when I sped in my truck yesterday too, but to that degree, what was the intention, right?
Right.
The judge taught me, the federal judge taught me something in the fact that it was a lot about intention and the responsibilities as I was as a human that affected and influenced America. And that is why I was hit so hard. And I accepted that responsibility in learning that they were judging me. He's the judge. They were judging me on this earth, on this planet, by who I was and who I influenced and what I was. And in that whole thing is I got to go scrub everything else in my life. But I wasn't told the rules, Jeremy. I wasn't told the rules to follow. I was given a pad of paper that had the Illinois rules, and I knew that book. I knew that book better than anybody because I had been slapped by these game wardens early in my career. I knew that even if I was bow hunting in Colorado in July when I was hunting these velvet elk, my outfitter out there is like, you're good, you're bow hunting. And I'm like, I still have to wear orange even though I'm bow hunting. Like I knew every rule across the planet because once I saw them, I could remember my photographic memory. So I knew all the rules.
Yep.
I just didn't give a shit if I killed that first deer or not. I didn't give a shit if I killed the second deer or not. All I cared about was the third one because it was the biggest and it was the one we're after. And people are like, well, I don't know about the third deer. Well, I was in a blind and I was sitting there and I had shot a deer the first night in the snow at 240 yards with the rangefinder with the muzzleloader, and I hard shot that sucker. But as you know, anybody that shot a muzzleloader, that bullet don't expand, especially 240. It pierced like I'm gonna guess that it went bottom, lung, heart shot, mule kick. Dude, I don't miss. I'm a wound them, but I don't really miss that much. In my whole career, my whole life, I feel bad because I wound a lot of deer because I don't miss them. I'm going to have the range and I'm going to have the execution. And then it's just a matter if the deer wants to stand still and die. I don't care how far they are. They're my responsibility. I'm hunting them. That's on me. And so I shoot this animal. I'm sighted in for that. Dude, I hit him, mule kicks, come back for the reaction, free hand salvos filming. Dude, I think I killed that deer. We get down, we go out there, we find blood. I look for that deer for 3 days. Up and down the hills of southern Indiana. And the guy goes, well, man, I've never seen anybody look for a deer ethically. like you guys looked for this deer, go ahead and go hunting again. So I spent 5 more days. I passed up the big deer. I ended up killing the unicorn deer at 230 yards, so less than I shot the first one at. But I didn't feel comfortable in taking the shot. Passed him up. He let him walk. I get a call from somebody that I had scheduled something for all the way on the other side of Missouri, about down by Kansas, to go on a duck hunt for one day. I get in a car. I drive all the way home, all the way back there. The other 2 people on my team, I've got hunting in Indiana. So we had this group of people that were hunting in Indiana separate from us, had all this ground that we could hunt. So our team, this sets up for the story, our team could hunt all this ground. And so I bought them tags. Here's my credit. Here's the company credit card. Hey, buy you guys tags, kill one. They end up killing 1 buck. I got enough for a show. They're still down there. We're driving back. And my buddy says, take my gun. It's a 300, 400 yard muzzleloader. It's the beginning of the big ultimate muzzleloader. So I swing by. I've never shot this gun, but I trust him. Like, he's an outfit. He was a guide at the time, and he's a badass killer, right? So I pick up his gun. I go out there. I'm back in Indiana, and I go out to that blind, and it starts raining and snowing, and we're rushing to get back. And I pick up this gun. It's already loaded. I just got to put one of them 45 shells on that Remington Ultra Mag. And I never shot it, or not Ultra Mag. That Remington 45 just goes on that ultimate muzzleloader. I put that thing on there, and I'm hunting. There were no, let me be clear about the rumors out there. There were no, don't shoot this deer, don't shoot that deer. And the rumors that are going on is, don't shoot this deer. Now, anybody that believes that story, that somebody would tell me not to shoot a 3.5-year-old 8-pointer, they know somebody's lying, and it's not this guy. I got, so that story is not true. But for all intent purposes, I don't give a shit. It can be true. So deer starts running up the field. All these deer are running up the same field, same blind as the very first day. All these deer running up this field, and they start piling out, and they start piling past me. Now realize that this story was never told to anybody but the game wardens in my living room. I told them, recorded. We live in a 2-party state, and the feds recorded me while the Indiana and Illinois sat there. And I told them the entire story, word for word, bam, and they still hunted me for a year to try to uncover other stuff because of all the rumors. And this is and they have all the recordings. I got to hear every statement that they ever took, because that's how the law works. So after I was indicted, I got to go to my lawyers, and I got to hear everything and read everything. And so, sucks for them. I have photographic memory, right? Why don't we write a book, right? But this is the first time we've ever talked about it, except for people in my house or breaking bread. And there's a lot more to it. But at the end of the day, those deer come running up. There's probably 20 or 30 of them running up this clover field all the way to us, just piling out, running to us. And I'm trying to make decisions, and it's raining, and I got a new gun, and insert 42 excuses, doesn't matter. Shit's happening fast. And these deer running up, and I look at Salvo and I go, I'm ready for it to be over. It's freaking December, January. My back's out. I'm beat. I don't give a rat's about what deer it is. I just want a dead one to finish this show and go home. ATA show's coming up, SHOT Show. I got a whole nother Harrisburg coming up. I'm just dreading my life. Deer's coming up. I'm like, is he big enough? Now, Salvo's never been on a hunt with me. He don't know. He's just holding this sucker in the window. And the window's about this big, man. Probably, it's a gun window. It's probably this big. So the camera is taking up most of it. I'm trying to look around and look up the field, and this sucker's running up and down these hills straight at us. And I'm like, 128, 132. He's not very big, but he'll do. He's wide, but he's an 8-pointer. I'm like, shit. So I've got the gun, and I see these other deer popping out of this valley to my right, and I've got the wind, and they're all going to this cornfield back behind us. And I look to my right, and I see these deer popping out, but this deer's coming so fast, I got to make a decision. And I hear, I'm on him. I got him. Well, it's almost like second nature. I'm on the gun. I'm like, forget it. Click safety off. Never shot this gun before. All smoke. Now, mind you, that gun's probably taken up that much of that big window, right? So I was in it. New cameraman, plenty of space, laying on the thing. Smoke. Camera comes back to me. I got him. Let me just let you know that I got him every time in my whole life, because I don't know if we're going to find them. Right. So I do what I'm a professional, like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Either a killer or entertainer. Entertainer turns on. I know that one clip is better than cutaways. So it comes to me. I'm a pro. Flip on the switch. Yeah, baby, we got him. I'm like, we smoked him, whatever. And so I say, so after I get what I know, because I'm producer, I'm producing in my head, and I'm like, okay, that's it. So we shut it off, and him being a new guy, he just doesn't turn it off. And I say, dude, shut that thing up. Like, what the hell are these deer to the right? Now, I don't know if we've killed them. I don't even care. I look at these deer to the right, and I go ahead and load up because I don't know if this other deer there. All I saw when smoke cleared was those 35 deer running across that green clover field.
Right.
All the way 200 yards. And I look to my right, and there is the buck that we're after, the unicorn buck that I had seen 5 days earlier or whatever, and didn't get an opportunity. The one that they want me to shoot. I load that sucker up. I pull it out that window right there, and I hear, I'm on him. And I'm like, shit. No, I don't care. I'll deal with it later. I clicked off that safety, put it on his butthole, and pulled the trigger, and that sucker dropped like a sack of potatoes. I do another. We got him. I think it's a new clip. And I'm like, well, we either got a mess on our hands or we got one dead. Either way, our asses are going home. And so that was it, man. So we got out. It was too dark in there to do anything. We got out. We went down the field, and and I went out to where the first deer was, like 50 yards or whatever, and combed real quick, and he was still in the blind. And I'm like, dude, there ain't nothing. There's just deer tracks all over in this old clover alfalfa. I come back up to the blind, and I go out to back out to the right side, and so he films me from there in the blind, go out, because I knew I could cut then to him down real quick and then to the deer. And I could change the light if we needed to do it tomorrow. I get out there, man. I found the deer. I do my recovery. I talk about, I missed the first one, and I didn't know if we'd use it. And I did my real fast one take recovery, and clip them up, I think it was a paper tag, man. It's just a very lax situation on the state's part and on my part and the people I'm around's part. It's really lax all the way around. Even the situation to where if I'd have stayed there and called the game warden, I would have been $125 fine. I would have kept the deer. And so at this point, I don't even think I hit the first one. I don't think I hit him from the blind. I don't think I hit him from my thing. I can literally say that I have no idea if I hit him, but I didn't care if I hit him. But it wasn't about the inches for me, but it was the biggest deer at the time. And I think you had to put it in a Ziploc bag and then tape it to the antler. And I think that's what we did. We got that. Somehow we were able to get through the muddy field, get to the road went right to the blind. We were able to drag him 50, 60 yards, get him in there. Didn't think nothing of it, just put him in the back, called whoever, and celebrated. But we were so tired, man. I was so tired after 200 days of hunting, really. Been gone since August, that it was just had taken a toll on my soul and my body and everything. And you just don't care. You just don't care about anything. And as we did it, we just went ahead and threw him in the back. Salvo's an old, New York. He's been in his own game violation, whatever. Is just kind of the way of life. You're party hunting again when you're 12. Remember, I'm not famous yet. I'm making nothing, 30 grand a year.
Yeah.
What do I got to lose? Right. I think that's the part that people didn't really understand, was it was so early that it hadn't happened. Even my contracts that I had signed with these big companies later on, that was like, make sure you don't break the law during this thing. Like, I could have fought those because I didn't do it while I was with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next morning we were told to go, and we were supposed to go and promote the place that I was hunting. And we did that. And all these fans came in, and social media was a big thing, and we were doing whatever. And we did all that. And I go, well, we have to go back out to the field. And when you go back out to the field and filming, you have to, like I told you, I was legal. I just didn't care about animals. I didn't care about whitetails. I killed too many of them. It was desensitized, man. Probably like the guys in Vietnam or whatever. Like they're in war. I was in war. I was fighting for my life, doing my dream, and I just didn't care about whitetails. It wasn't that I didn't have ethics. It's just I didn't care. So I knew the rules, that we were right off this big main road. And I knew that they had poaching problems on this big road in southern Indiana, because one side is fenced and the other side these deer would try to get in. And I know they had a lot of people that had shot deer there or whatever, and that the game warden we had talked to earlier, because he had stopped us, that he was already there that day. And so when we came back, I said, we have to leave this place of business that we were at, and we have to go back to shoot the rest of. I just had in my brain, I want to have this vision of the blind we were in and the sunset and whatever. And I knew to go back out in that field in orange with a gun was going to be a no-no unless we had a tag.
Mm-hmm.
The other two people are hunting southern Indiana, so we have other places to go. So there was a no-brainer for me to pull out my credit card and buy Salvo a tag, because now we got a tag we can film in the blind.
Yep.
So we drove right to that blind. I backed the truck off far enough that I went out in the field and I was getting a shot out in the field. So we have a tag. We're in the blind. We're getting these little cutaways. We're getting all this stuff, little thing. I know I can darken it up, have producers darken it up in post or whatever. We're getting everything we need so we can go home. And I go out in this field. And what I'm about ready to tell you now is probably a lawyer would say, no, don't tell it. But I don't care. I want somebody to go over there and check this field. I mean, if I have to be legal as everybody else, I went out in this field, way out in this field, and I look up and I'm 100-something, 200 yards out there, and I'm shooting this thing. And I look to my right, and around the corner, around these pine trees, is an old feeder. But it's in a feeder pile to where you know that the middle of the day isn't, the middle of the season wasn't the last time that it was baited. Was it baited while I was there? I honestly believe no. But at the time, you instantly have this sinking, horrible feeling. One, you kind of know the people that you're around.
Right.
They're probably not there for you to win. They really benefit by you killing a big deer.
For sure.
And if you don't know about it, you don't know about it. And I turned that corner and I went, my whole heart and everything sank, because I was like, we've been set up. If you feel like you've been set up, how fast are you going home?
Fast.
You're going home in the fastest speed ever, right? So now I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, Salvo, get down here. So he comes down. I'm like, leave the camera, dude. Look at this. We go over and I'm going to go look and go, how screwed am I? Do I call the game warden? Do I do whatever? We get the crap out of here. So I'm indicating right now at this feed bait station. So realize in Illinois, you can't even spill salt off your fries in August or in off season, right? But you can't do you can't feed them in your backyard.
Nope.
You can't spill salt off your fries. You can't do anything. So I immediately freak out. I forget that Indiana, like Iowa, you can feed or bait away from bait for pictures, or you can feed in the off season. And then I think like Lee and Tiffany got that crush cam at their house, and I know where that is because I've hunted that field that connects to the back entrance. But where that thing is, if that deer is coming and going from that feed, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to go look at that thing to see if there was any food or anything on the ground. And to me, it was not baited. It was not fed, hadn't been fed while we were there, but it sure as crap had been. It wasn't June,
Right.
the last time some corn had been in there, right? And if you're going to find it, you're going to find like Big Time and some of these stuff there was no way anybody was testing that soil and not finding minerals.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, oh shit. And as we say, oh shit, it doubled real fast. We look down and there's a blood trail. And as we see that there's a blood trail, what would you two do if you found a blood trail right now out in the driveway? You follow it because you're gangsters. Like, you'd follow it, dude. Like, what is this? I'm like, dude, is this the first deer? We've been looking all night. And so I'm like, let's go follow it. Salvo looks at me. I look at him. We go follow the blood, dude. We follow it down into these big cedars and 200 and something yards, 250 yards away from where I shot. And if I would have shot good, or I knew the gun or whatever, it shouldn't have gone that far. And there's this 8-pointer laying dead. Is it the 8-pointer I shot at? Dude, I still don't care. Is it probably? Probably. But do I know? Did I look at it long enough? I didn't even give a shit. You know how many 128-inch 8-pointers I've passed and seen and killed in my life? I just didn't care. And I'm like, dude, if this is, because it could have got shot off the road.
Sure.
But at the point, I was just like, but shit. And Salvo goes, I ain't coming back here. I got my tag. And I was like, dude, tag that thing up. We tagged that sucker up and already had the other one in the back of the friggin' truck, threw them both in there and skedaddled.
I assume you checked that deer, like Salvo checked that deer with Indiana. whatever telecheck or however they did it.
Yeah. We checked both of them in.
Yep.
We just party hunted, dude.
So
It was $125
both
fine. I
legally
kept the deer.
tagged, other than the fact that he didn't shoot the deer.
Yep. Got it.
Both legally tagged.
Yep.
100%. Both of them were tagged. Both of them were eaten. Like, the only thing that I screwed up on is I just didn't care enough and slow down. And so many people that I had heard all the stuff, and I've listened to it all. It just doesn't affect me because my life isn't affected by people that don't know. And, at the time I was like, okay, well, the only thing that can get me through this is the gospel. And I remember Jesus standing in the middle when he was being, just when he was standing in the middle when everybody was like, they're questioning him. And it really, I had been praying through it. And he literally did not say anything to justify that he was the Son of God or anything else, admittance or non-admittance, because it didn't matter what he said. Their decision had already been made. And I just went, that is probably my first step at being wise, is just shut up. Let these people go. Let these people be mad. And going back to the first thing we talked about when we started, was you said there were entertainers and then there were people that were hunters. And I was an enigma. I was something different. I was a combination of the two, but I cared about the people because I was the ultimate consumer. I still am. I love outdoor TV. I love movies. I love producing. I love, the end of a movie and understand it for the production value of it. And, even what we're doing here and the technology that we're doing, speaking, I could sneeze and you guys could say, bless you. And the fact that technology is going across the country right now,
nuts.
That's what makes my heart pound. Right. And so for me, I just decided to shut up. I didn't get on the internet. I didn't do an interview till right now. I decided that I was going to use Chris Brackett's Land Life podcast, and somebody, when they proved themselves worthy, Jared, to look past the Chris Brackett answer of the wall of the safeguard to guard my heart, and you showed up at my house, man. None of the other guys showed up at my house. And I was like, all right, let's go with this. Let's organically grow and grow out and figure it out. And that was it. And so that's what made us here. But that's the story. That's where we're at. And then so never got home, took the footage like we always do, went through it, and it was like, dude, just lose the one clip, because I didn't know that Salvo didn't clip it. So I didn't go in and go Chris, lose the clip.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's obviously a great story here. That's the one moment in the situation there where it's like, if you look back and be like, man, if there was a second to pause, it'd be, after you shot at that first deer and you were uncertain or didn't know, or maybe in your heart you did know, or I don't know.
Are you talking, hold on a second. Are you talking about second deer?
Yeah, really the second deer.
Of the three
second deer going into third deer.
First deer, you did everything you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
You shot at it. You searched for 3 days. You couldn't find. Anybody that's hunted long enough has done that.
We went way further than what the normal person does, but we've all been to that place.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I don't think you did anything wrong, pursuing that deer as long as you could, the first one.
Yep.
Landowner should go ahead and hunt. That's what you do. After you put in a solid effort, you try again. And so that night, when the 8-point, these 35 deer were coming in, you shoot the first one. I can totally, try to understand your mindset of at the end of 200 days of hunting. I get it. Maybe not to the level of having lived it, but I can understand.
Yeah.
And so
because I had never killed a booner. I had never killed a booner, Jared. I had never killed a 150, 160-inch deer. I had never killed that. What you guys talk about all the time. I hadn't killed that 160 yet.
Yeah. Well,
I hadn't killed that pinnacle.
So let me ask you this. I mean, after you shot that first deer, like in your heart of hearts, were you, and you kind of answered it earlier. I just want to go back to it. It's like, did you think that you killed that first one and you're like, we'll figure it out, I'm going to shoot the second one? Or did you?
I knew I knew that I killed. I mean, in my brain, even the deer that I've missed, I've killed them.
Yeah.
If I'm pulling a trigger or pointing a gun, they're dead already. So I think me being on that black of a black and white line, if I pull, my intent is there no matter whether I ever pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So to me, the answer to your question, very black and white, very black. I pulled up a gun on it. It's dead.
Yep.
Right. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I should care.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people are going to hear this and go like, damn, I probably don't care as much either. I'll just get my brother's tag and my dad's tag or whatever.
Well, I mean, dude, that's a moment where we've all been in it. Every single person, whether it's deer hunting or something else, has been in a situation where you're about to do something you know is wrong. And, so when I'm talking about like a moment of pause, it's just interesting to reflect on that situation for you. Yeah, there was a lot of circumstances, that, probably that led to you deciding I'm going to shoot the second deer anyways. But I mean, for me,
you have that. Did you have that? A lot of people have that last drink and get in that car.
Sure. But yeah, exactly. For me, that's the biggest moral of your story.
I'm trying to put it in perspective for folks out there that need to get off their hunting high horse and look at it from a person, a broken, sinful human that we all are, and go, take out hunting. The part where everybody's getting messed up is they're doing it because we're doing a hunting outdoor land podcast. Nope. This has to do with humans doing stupid shit all the time. The last beer, getting in the car. That girl that just, man, she smells awful good. And I just had a couple drinks after a golf round. Like, do these guys kiss her? Are you working at long hours with this other girl at the office? Where's your sin at? We all got them. I'm just really good at killing. I'm just really addicted to it. I like the blood.
Yeah.
And I got paid for it. And became, we'll charge him with a felony because he directs the lives of all these people. All these people look at him. And even you now, you guys buying land and you guys hunting all these states, and you've been doing it for a while, but now you're a big deal, right? You're a big deal. If they can prove that you got $350 invested in that hunt, buddy, that you're telling people about deer, and now all of a sudden you have a responsibility that now becomes a felony because of $350.
Yeah, man.
Right? And then that's another part we can still talk about, but go ahead.
It's the perfect temptation.
Where you were like,
it's the perfect temptation for Chris Brackett. It's like, dude, in a moment of weakness that you laid it out. And it's like to have such a pinnacle moment, like in your, in that hunt, in that season, in that career, to be like, do I pull the trigger on this or not? And then everything that unfolded, afterwards is like, I think your honesty on it now is just like, what a great learning experience for people, like slow that moment down. And it's like, you could have made a decision there. And there's probably follow-up decisions, to where you're like, well, I could have handled it differently after we found it. I could have called the warden. I could have, whatever you could have done. But the first one was, do I pull that trigger the second time or not?
Right. Well, you're 100% correct. I think the hurt emotion was what I was trying to get to was, people loved me because they could drink a beer with me and they could relate to me. My ass stayed at the booth from daylight till dark in Harrisburg for a decade, right? I talked to every person that had time because I loved what I was doing, but I truly loved them. Like, I truly loved people, even though I hate people. Like, that's my sinful heart, but I knew what my mission was with Christ before I ever knew the gospel. I knew it was to spend with these people, and people related to me down because I was publicly ridiculed, and people will so fast turn because I let them down. They felt like I called somebody names. I belittled this other cameraman. That didn't happen till like 2 months before this, or like a couple months before this happened. And he just wanted to be relative, and I get that too. But for me, it was one of them things where I let down so many people, and I'll apologize to them. But really, I don't want fans. For a long time, I wanted fans. I don't care about having fans. I care about if I leave this earth, it doesn't matter. I don't have any kids. It doesn't care about a legend. I don't even care if I'm buried. I don't care if there's a funeral. And this is completely opposite from when I was a super famous TV hunter, is that, boy, I wanted a lake that kids could fish named after me, man. Right now, I'd have all my Golden Moose Awards behind me up here. I'd have all these accolades. The deer trophies, I mean, there's a reason why the Boone and Crockett's that I got here and stacked up next to me, that they're not even mounted yet, because they just don't mean anything to me. I've done all the things. I've caught every dream I've ever wanted except for having kids, and I've done it all. And what I just realized in all of this was, it wasn't that bad decision. It was that I was praying to the Lord to find the gospel, and He allowed them people that were in my life to go ahead and do the thing, stealing the footage. So that's the part people don't know, is that the producer that was I thought was my best friend that I was trying, he stole that footage, man. He took that thumb drive. He took that thumb drive when we got home. He took that thumb drive and he hid that thumb drive. And on that thumb drive, he wrote the golden clip. And he vindictively took this clip. Now, if you say, he's lying, actually, there's transcripts of what he told the feds. It happens to be that recording. He took that and he hid it. And when he was moonlighting and going behind my back after getting arrested for crack cocaine in Peoria, Illinois, and then getting out of that, and we were all working to help each other, I thought, but really I was definitely there to help him. He took that piece of footage and he hid that footage. And then when he was fired 4 years later and he was let go, that I just told him to drop off all the stuff at the office and we didn't ever have to talk, and I wished him the best. He took that clip, and it's all, again, on recorded audio that is federal, so it doesn't have to be two-party. It's transcripted. And he took that clip and he gave that to other people and he sent it to the landowner, and the landowner lost his mind. And then he went live, and then all hell broke loose, which was the greatest moment of my life because it saved my life. And all this stuff that was meant for bad, God meant for good. And so it had happened that the landowner lost his marbles, but he called me. Two things happened. One, the gentleman that stole the footage sent me text after text after text after text to go, never talk about me again. Never talk about me again. Never talk about me again. And I would just continue to keep it. It was very weird because now all of a sudden he was out of my company. I wasn't going to not talk about him. I just simply said that he wasn't around. He wasn't with us anymore. I wished him the best, whatever. And one night he lost it. I had just killed go round. I just killed a giant deer. And so even though he had left and even though whatever, I was on a high and he was going to bump me down a notch. And they started texting, and that was it. And then it went from there. And all of a sudden, next thing I know, it was viral. And in 24 hours, I had made a decision with the VPs of the Outdoor Channel that said, dude, if we take you off right now, these sponsors will have to eat. They'll have to eat their contracts, and and they've already left you. They've been public about it, and you won't have to pay us the remainder of the balance of a couple $100,000. So they did me a favor. And they said, hey, we're with you. We get it. This is just a bad situation and you're being made an example of. And that was it. So I took the stuff off the Outdoor Channel, and the game wardens called me and said, hey, we got this clip. And I said, come over. I'd never been in trouble before. I didn't know that it was Shut the F Up Friday. I didn't know. I'd never been in trouble. I'd never been in cuffs, never been in trouble. So I invited the Illinois guy and the Indiana guy and the Fed over to my house. They walked to my house, got a guy from church to come witness it. I told them the whole story, just like I told you guys. And they said, that's not what happened. And I gave them the deer. I gave them the sheds off the deer. And then they definitely, after indictment and after getting the information from that time to the indictment, was 11 months, and they waited till 5 days before the statute of limitations was gone. And the reason I wasn't charged in Indiana was because Indiana's punishment for what I did was $125, and I kept the deer. When I came over that border to Illinois, I became a felony.
That's
because
federal.
Federal.
Yep.
And if you don't know what it is, guys, you guys need to look it up. Like, just say, Jared, if it was rainy or nasty that day you shot your second buck or whatever in Illinois, if you wouldn't have cut out that little notch on that little gun tag and you just brought them back, but they had, let's say, footage or a picture on the internet of that deer in two different locations back in Indiana, and that notch wasn't, you make more than $350 to go after a deer, get paid to deer hunt. It is now a felony charge on you because you influence America, and you should know better. You should have checked back. So it didn't matter if I killed 50 deer or if you just didn't notch that Illinois tag. The minute you cross that border, if they want to go after you, they will get you. And if you did it on if they think you did it on purpose, that you and Jeremy talked about it, now that's conspiring, and you're in the same boat.
The Hunter Podcast is brought to you by Muddy.
Man, Jared, we probably have been using Muddy products for at least 10 years now.
It's a long time, dude.
It's been a long time. And I can remember when it was simply just safety harnesses and camera arms of all things. And, that's evolved to where you and I both have a bunch of Muddy box blinds as well.
I would say a bunch, but yeah, they've come a long way, and certainly the box blinds are huge. Shot that buck over your shoulder out of a Muddy box blind a couple of years ago. The harness and all of the other safety accessories really are a major component of what Muddy offers for me. We've had some injuries in the past. I've had some tree stand accidents. This is all back before we were using, frankly, harnesses, the lineman's belt while we're hanging stuff, and the safe lines. I have those in every single one of, our fixed tree stands now. And so we really have made safety a priority. That's a big deal for us. And, Muddy has everything we need for that.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about Muddy is anyone listening to the HUNTR Podcast can save 20% using the code HUNTR20. That's HUNTR20. Anything that you can see on the Muddy Outdoors store online, use that code, save yourself 20% for this hunting season.
Go Muddy.
So, Chris, let me ask you this, because you bring up that 350 rule. So, average Joe does the exact same thing you did. Yeah. What's he get hit with?
Poach all the deer you want, just stay in your state. They're not going to hit you with a felony. My point is I'm not telling anyone to poach. But
I'm just understanding the clarity, because clearly the fact you say that amount of money, as in like that is a factor in what they threw at you from an American influence standpoint.
Yeah, if you go to Target with your wife and you decide to put something in your pocket and walk out the door, if that value is over $350, that's a felony. Like, no questions asked, they can hit you with that. Now you got to defend yourself, and it's America where you can defend yourself. It took me 4 years to get my FOID card back, which is not really an American thing, but it's an Illinois thing where you have a firearm owner's identification to even hold a gun in the state of Illinois. So because they charged me heavy on the felony stuff, they could control the fact that I couldn't even have a gun.
Wow.
And then when I went ahead and took the probation for 30 months, I couldn't leave a 13 county area, and that was on a misdemeanor. So I only have a misdemeanor. Like I beat everything because it was never a felony. It was arguable on its face that even the charges, and if I wouldn't have let them in my house, they'd have never got me. And if I wouldn't have gave them the deer, admitted the deer was even in Illinois, they'd have never got me.
So that was the Lacey Act side of things, right? From Indiana to Illinois, that's when they brought in the Lacey Act against you.
That was the only thing they had, because the 2-year statute in Indiana.
Yep.
That's why I'm comfortable also about talking about it. That was what the timing was, is that everything I've said today is true, or we can be proved by record. And so all of that stuff is either factual or proved on record that had been said or done, and nothing that I would have admitted to. It's past 5 years, right?
You're right. Statute of limitations is over.
Statute of limitations up, unless it's murder, right? Unless people have murdered people or whatever. There's some of that stuff, but I can't be charged again for the same crimes.
So, I mean, the landowner seems like he kind of teed this off, but I mean, per the feeder thing, like that dude's not innocent either, right?
And here's the crazy part. The game wardens never, that's just a gray area, right? Because you have to realize, and here's the tough part, Jeremy, you're going to love this brain twister. If I wasn't able to be written, my mom's a teacher, she'd kill me. Written a ticket in Indiana, how could I be charged by a felony?
Sure.
Or how could I be charged in the Lacey Act if I was never broke the law in Indiana? It was dismissed. It should have been dismissed on its face, and they shouldn't have been able to do it because the Lacey Act reads that that you have to break the law and be convicted of a citation in
that
Indiana.
State. Yeah. Correct.
I never got a ticket.
Yeah.
Did your lawyer bring that up as you were being prosecuted?
We argued it on its face, but it had never been argued in the world. So it was unprecedented. So the judge allowed it.
I see.
This was on Fox
to make an
News
example.
within 48 hours of me getting in trouble.
Yeah, it
was on Fox News.
Yeah, I was on Fox News, dude. It was,
Wow.
I was deer hunting. I was deer hunting. I was hunting the deer I called Penguin. He was the last deer I shot, and I was hunting by myself. And I came out of the woods to it, and it was like, well, you guys were in Kansas, so it would have been right before dark. And I got a message. Well, when I got in trouble, I got in trouble. But when I got indicted, it was November 18th, and my wife at the time I was seeing her again, and I said, I have just been indicted. And it was on the internet before I was told about it.
Oh.
And so I went and hid in a hotel because they had to serve you, or they would just come get you. They could have got me and thrown me in jail.
What was your reaction?
that
What
was
did
only
you think,
because-
Chris? I mean, at this time, did you give a shit? Like, did you actually, were you still in that I don't care mindset, or now were you like, oh boy?
Well, so for a year, I was broke. I had to sell everything I had. I was living in a little bitty house. I didn't have a savings, and I just had made myself a 200 and something $1,000 budget to film all the episodes. So what people probably don't know about TV, and I'd love to do another podcast, talk about how TV works, but I would buy the airtime for $80,000 to $150,000. I would own the airtime, and then the Sentlocks or whoever would pay me money, and then pay for the airtime, and then whatever I made was for my hunt budget and all the salaries. And I paid all these guys like they paid them more than I paid me, $75,000 to be my production stuff, and to do my production stuff all year, and be my in-house, because I didn't look at it as a business. It was a family. And so I kept everybody in-house, and I kept them fed, and they all had kids, and I gave them everything. I didn't save any money, and I pay myself 50 grand, and I paid everybody else these salaries, and I created Castle Kill, which is a place that had apartments, and they lived there rent free, and we traveled the world, and I included them on everything. For me, it was a lifestyle. It wasn't a business. And so I knew nothing about business. It was just a passion project. And then these guys just took advantage of that. Like, this is what was happening. And so I didn't have the boundaries. I didn't have the wisdom to have the boundaries. I didn't have to do it as a business. So I had spent every dollar we had filming. And when did it happen? It happened in December. And what happened, or December, January?
Budget.
It had happened in December.
Yep.
So I had already spent that 200 and something $1,000 budget, and I had already paid all their salaries.
Yeah.
So I was broke again, just getting ready to air all 20 of these episodes and get those paychecks from them sponsors. And so I never got to air the footage. So I never got those checks. And I didn't even get to finish the first, the episodes we were in, because we had 2 more months. So I didn't get the final payments on the contracts of the 17 model, or the 17 contracts. So I literally had $0 in my account, and I couldn't pay the $30,000 fine. And I was serving a 30-month sentence to sit out, and they wanted me to go to jail. Here's the 2 things that they wanted from me. This other mouse, they wanted to not only send me to jail, they wanted me to serve time. And the second one was they wanted me to flip on everything that everything that was in 5 years federally. They knew that I had been in a crap ton of camps, and they knew that there was only 2 ways out of this. One, take as hard as they wanted to hit me and plea the deal, and go guilty right off the bat, which is what I did when I realized real quick it wasn't about me. It was what else they could get. And I just went, I'm not playing any games. I'm out. I'm sorry. I will sit out. God's going to use it for good. It's going to be the hardest thing I ever did. And that's what happened. And yeah, man, it was a wild deal.
So how long
And
couldn't you hunt?
But your question was what?
My question
30
was
months I couldn't hunt.
30 months. No, my
But
question.
I had the indictment took away my weapons. So the indictment in Illinois was a year long. So when I got in trouble and then I got hit, I actually put a post on Facebook that said, hey, I know that I've only got September and October to hunt before I get indicted, and I've already pleaded this deal, and I should have been able to hunt. I put on something saying, hey, who's got a hunt that I can go on, one last hunt? And the prosecutor took that into the judge and said, he wants to hunt again. I'm like, yeah, I already just pled the deal. I should get 1 more month to have a last hurrah. And they went in, and the judge, no holds barred, said no weapons. He can't even have a knife. And I couldn't leave a 13 county area without permission. And I did. And between the time that they came to my house in November And the time that I got indicted in the other November, I had 12 months where I did not have a job. Did not have a job. I sold every I sold every bow that I'd ever had. I sold every suit that I'd ever had. I sold all those boats. I sold everything, but I happened to have just a little bitty house. I couldn't even pay rent because I couldn't get a job. I was charged with 2 felonies. They ruined that year of my life. And I was so depressed. And at the time, I lost the girl that I was going to marry because the family didn't want anything to do with this felon because they sold guns. And I was just pretty much kicked out of North Carolina.
Was this the low of low, Chris?
The truth of it. The low of low that I could ever imagine. Anything besides drugs, right? I could think that addiction and drugs could just be absolutely amazing. But everything that I'd ever loved, everything I ever worked for, every person that I had in my life, I maybe had four people that were in my circle that were still there. One of them got indicted and busted on a wolf because in trying to give up information on me, they gave up on something that he did by a tagging situation. And so he had to deal with all of that. And there was collateral damage from a lot of, because they came after me they went to every person I had hunted. Like, so Jared, you come into my house, they interviewed every person I'd hunted with, every outfitter I hunted with, every outdoor channel, every mossy oak, every whatever. They said, if you even talk to him, if you even do anything with him, you're dead. They made sure I had zero money to fight them. Unlike other people that have been indicted on the Lacey Act had the money to fight them, because it is about money or information. They want two things. They either want you to help get that other person strung up, or they want you to go ahead and fight them with all the money and then pay the big fines. And then you can say you're guilty or not guilty or whatever. And then you can manipulate whatever that is. But whatever's done in the dark will be brought to the light. And I promise you that all of it will be brought to the light in all of our lives. And that was it for me. And so I just realized real damn quick that my mom was getting older. My dad wasn't in good health. And if that wouldn't have happened, I'd have been living in North Carolina and I would have never got to spend time with my mom. She's just fighting cancer right now. It'll take her one day, but she's my best friend. And she's the greatest person I've ever known. And she's fighting every day. Got to spend her birthday yesterday with her. And we found my dad 2 strokes later on the floor the day before Christmas. And while I was on my probation, or had just gotten off or whatever, but I would have never had those time with we found him, and then I had to essentially pull the plug on him, and I would have never been there for all of this. So,
because at some point you forgave your father, I would assume during sometime during this, you guys had that heart to heart.
It was before that. No, it was just me. It was just me and talking to God, where I was just like, it was before this. But truly, I realized that my time was so much more valuable. I broke down and cried every day because I went through this diamond forming purity. But there's a reason I named my show Fear No Evil, but I didn't know the gospel. And through this diamond forming that he has for me in my life and my mission with men and setting up land and selling land and all of this through my ministry, dude, I don't do anything for me anymore. I do it for my wife, my mom, my nephews, or whatever. I try to find joy in some things, but I can't wait to leave this world. I can't wait to get to heaven. Like if I get an accident tomorrow, driving, or I don't wake up in the morning, or somehow I go into a stroke, and you're like, oh, he's made it through everything. He's so tough. He's a tough guy. Guys, I'm going to try not to wake up because I love Jesus so much. Like I'm there, and I would have never been there because I wanted what this world had for me. Dude, I wanted that Fear No Evil suit that I designed from Scentlock. I wanted that Fear No Evil bow that Diamond let me make. I got all my dreams, you guys. I did everything that I ever wanted in this world at 40 years old, dude. And then I had it all taken away from me and went, now what do you want, dumbass? Now what do you want? And I went, man, I want somebody to wake up to. And Lord, one of my friends from church asked me, do you want the girl from North Carolina? If you could have right now, you're in this little limbo. If you could have Jody back, or you can have this girl from North Carolina, what would you pick? I said, Jody, every time. Because we weren't talking. And I got her back, and I married her. And now we live every day. We don't have any kids, and we live every day for the Lord, and we'll fight. we'll fight every day, and every night, every morning, every night we go, yeah, let's get up and do it over again. Like, we're gonna fight till we're dead, and she's my best friend or whatever. But we're both kids, and we're get through our lives and take care of our older mothers, and life's just tough, and it's okay to say it's tough. But it's bad to the bone. I know my mission now. I know my mission. I know that it's through the podcast that probably will become bigger than that. Land Life will probably become bigger than that. It'll probably be a network of big deals. Like right now, even going to do a consult where I've got like 5 contracts that just came in the last couple of days. So I just started advertising it. And when I go to these people's houses, I get to talk to them, man. I get to talk to them and bring them on my team for a year. I get to pour into them, and most of them are maybe older, most of them may be younger, but they get to tell, there ain't nothing you can throw at me that I'm not gonna help you. You're my brother. And but if you're not right for me, I'll be like, yo, here's your money back, whatever. But most of them are not just looking for me to design their land or tell them how I would look at it. Most of them, they want more than that. I think we all do.
Mhm.
And then how to look at, like, do you want that 160 or what are we really after in our lives? And I know that that's my mission. I know that I got to do
Yeah.
everything that I wanted, so now he can use it for good.
It's a big discussion, man, because Jared and I have I mean we love to chase mature whitetails. Like it's just awesome to do. And I obviously I'm older than Jared is, but I think, Jared kind of had a little bit of that revelation this year after North Dakota, when it was like, Jared chasing big bucks in the past few years, it ate you up, and sometimes not in a good way, sometimes in a good way, but a lot of times just like frustration, stress.
It's consuming. I mean, we've all, for anybody that's like got an addictive personality, like in a good way, it's like, man, you just want all of it. Yours is sex, drugs, rock and roll, and the hunting industry, and mine is, it's a focus on hunt. My wife will call me out for, she's like, you're addicted to this, and so yeah, I mean, you have to just be really aware, and there are things that I think happen in your life, and people that you talk to can point it out for you. Your close 5 that are watching your 6 or whatever. I mean, that's huge. Is that, yeah, I mean, deer hunting at the end of the day is such a minuscule part of life. So much bigger than that. And so the fact that you've found your calling basically is like, man, I hope that people realize you kind of have to reach the end of yourself before you can that can be revealed to you. So that's pretty cool.
God's still using it through all this hate for me, right? Like, you either love me or hate me, but you hear this, you're like, okay, fine. Maybe I'll listen to you again. Or maybe I'll give him a chance, or maybe I'll follow him again.
I can sit here and listen to you all
and
day,
then
dude.
Go.
I mean, I may have talked less on this podcast than any that we've ever done. It's just like, yeah, your story is it's entrancing. It's cool to see what God has done in your life. It's pretty amazing.
Well, I think
it's not about, and so go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it, there's been some massive change in your life, Chris, and people fear change. Fear no evil, but people fear change greatly. But I think it's something that we all have to embrace.
Well, dude, Chris, that moment, you're talking about. Let me not lose what it was here. You're talking about that. How whatever specific moment it was, but ultimately the you getting in trouble for this was like the best thing that ever happened to you, because it's like, but anything leading up to that would have been your worst nightmare, your worst fear.
My worst fears came true. My worst, every worst fear, if I wrote them on this piece of paper right now, literally wrote them down, every one of them in a very short amount of time, all to show me that, like, Acts 20:24, like, the way I finished this race, man, that's it for me. You know how easy it is for me to kill giant deer? Like, like truly, even through this process, slowed it so far down that I went, well, these things aren't going to win. And my buddy Kirk told me the other day when he just killed this giant, I'm like, well, he did this all last year, and he did this year, and nobody else hunts him, and we're the only one hunting him. And he goes, yes, he leaves the property, but if you just hunt this deer, he's gonna die. Like, they do not win. Like if you hire me, if you were in my circle and we're after, they're not going to win. Like I suck at a lot. I got a lot of problems, but big deer or finding out how to kill them or teaching you how to kill or mentally get into the zone to go through the things that I did a million times that I was really good at. Those aren't our problems. You know, our problems are just that sin, you know, that lust, that prioritizing, that patience. Patience is my number one. Patience is my number one. And this whole thing taught me to be patient in God's time, not mine. And then the fact that, well, Jeremy's getting a little bit there, but you haven't hit 40 yet. But there's something happens at 40, man. Like if you look at pictures of me before this, my beard was black, my hair was black. I was healthy on the outside, but my brain and my heart and my soul wasn't. I wasn't wise. And I gave up all of that to now go, well, Don Higgins thinks I'm a man that plays in women's sports because my ass shoots a crossbow. But I'm one of the people that can shoot a bow better than I can shoot a crossbow. And to me, it's more about the animal. Like to me, after all of this, it's more about, well, do you respect that thing? Like, are you deadly with a crossbow? Just because they got a crossbow doesn't mean that they're good. Doesn't mean that they know how their broadheads go on or they're doing research or whatever. So I think it's less about the weapon, and I think it's about people being buttholes about the fact that they don't care about the equipment. Because you can have like my Bobby Hart muzzler dude shoot so far, but at 100 yards, I just blew these two does up, and it was the most fun moment. But even the guys that buy the big equipment, even the guys that do all this stuff, man, they don't do the romance of what it took Jeremy 20 years ago that we were seeing in that romantic part of that outdoor industry. Those guys all loved the process of it. And so what I learned in all this is the process. Like I snicker inside when I hear even some of y'all's things in your discussions. And it's like watching, I don't mean this as an older man with a white beard, but I snicker because I was you. I was both of you on both sides. I was, you know, like I had the same conversations back then, but the problem is there wasn't a bunch of people to have these conversations with because most of the people weren't where I was. Because I was a young dude in an industry that was older than me, that was fan favorite, doing whatever, but I had the energy to do all the stuff and I didn't have the secrets. Like I've never had the secrets. Like I've never had the secrets as far as I didn't have to keep any DUIs. I didn't have to keep my divorces. I didn't have to, my stuff was aired instantly because my whole life was on social media and I was live all the time. And so that was what brought people really close to me, that they were let down. And then, you know, I don't think the discussion's anymore about weapons. I think it's about how much they love those weapons and they love the romance of like making sure those guns are sighted in. And they're like, oh, spend the extra money on the shooting of the thing. Are you teaching your kids to properly load these things and sight them in? And do you decock your crossbow every time? Do you keep the strings lubed? Dude, I'll guarantee you that string lube is the number one most unsold thing on the planet because people are assholes. And they don't care about the romance of what they're doing. It doesn't matter about a crossbow or a bow. Are you waxing your string?
Yeah.
Like my bow looks like Willie Nelson's guitar, you know, but the fact is that he still makes sure it's got strings on it. And I think that's the argument, right? I think it goes back to deer. I think it goes back to food plots. How deep are you taking it? How much do you truly love it? Because I know my life's fast and my only thing is that I got to slow it down. And I think all these people with land and all this stuff and all this men's stuff and trying to direct our families and kids running around and playing 17 sports, it all comes down to how are you winning that race? How are you finishing that race? Are you slowing it down? Are you smelling that? You know, the world's telling us to go faster, and the gospel and our men in our lives should be saying, slow it down, dumbass. Like, slow it down. That's it. It doesn't matter what weapon you shoot the deer with. The conversation is shut up, listen more than you talk. I know I talk a lot, but I got something to say because this is what I've been waiting to hear with two people that I trust or talk about for people to hear, that people I trust. But I think the world, if I had to say one other thing, is shut up. The nature speaking, the deer speaking. the crossbows and all the stuff, whatever. It doesn't matter what weapon you use. Really, at the end of the day, they're deer. We hunt them. I don't care if you do it with sticks. Doesn't matter what it is. Slow down. Figure out why you're doing it. Because I didn't know I was doing it, man. I just was pulling triggers, shooting deer to make it to end goal to make a TV show. If I made a TV show, cool things were going to happen for me, and I was making my art. But I needed that really cool kill, and I wanted to kill that deer that was over 160, and it pushed me over my limit. And I went, oh shit, let's get home. But I didn't know about the Lacey Act. If I'd have known about the Lacey Act, those deer would have never left there. Yeah. And I would have waited 5 years and whatever. Like, there was ways to get around it. Do you know that Greg Ritz is the one that said, why didn't you just tell me that you were being blackmailed by your producer with this clip? We would have done something, right? Now, does that mean dirty? I don't know. But there were people that had money invested in
what
me.
What does that mean?
That would have probably made it go away.
I'm sure, dude. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot
of people with money would have made it go away.
There was a lot of investments on you at that time, you know? Yeah. And so, to figure out how to push it under the rug and make it go away and keep going.
Well, in hindsight,
one company had to do was stand up.
I mean, those are the things, though, that it's like, you know, you write down all the worst fears and stuff. It's like guys live their whole lives, you know, calling people with money to get them out of problems and this and that. And it's like, it happened for a reason. You know, clearly, I think you can say that on the other side of it.
I love it, man. But and there's now that I told this story, like, publicly, there's so much I want to talk about. Like, I told you well, you already knew my character. Like, I'm a producer, so I took it really serious. I made sure I sent you a text earlier, made sure it was what you wanted and whatever. And I take it serious. And I didn't write anything down because I'm pretty good on my feet and pretty good at my job, but I prayed through it and I didn't sleep much. And I already had these interviews with you last night in my dream, in my weird methodical, I walk properties in my sleep.
I told Jeremy this morning, I said, dude, Chris is taking this really seriously. I was like, it's not like it's because it's a big platform or anything, but it's you're sharing your story, and it's like people are going to be impacted by it. And so, like, I think it's awesome that you took it as seriously as you did, and like, I agree. And we appreciate it.
Yeah, we take it serious,
and I think you killed it. I was like, dude, if I was listening to this podcast, which I did for the most part, just sat here and listened to you, I'm like, holy shit, that's a great guy. There's a lot to learn here. You know, it's. I
mean, Chris, Jared and I used to have these discussions, just us, right? This was our deer camp. It was Jared and I having these discussions every day, and eventually it was like, we need to film these. And we do it because, number one, I think discussions like this are healthy. To just talk and to hear it and to get out. But do we do it because we want to find other people? Everybody's different. We want to find other people that have mutual shared relations that we enjoy, whether it's the same viewpoint or a different viewpoint, and just talk.
I think everybody is having these conversations. You know, whether that's they have the same opinion or it's about the exact same thing. You know, who knows? But people are having these conversations behind closed doors or with close friends, and just I'd
like to think so.
I think our podcast is just it's comforting to know that other people are too. It's kind of what it is for me. Like, we've gotten that a lot when people write us and they're like, "I'm so glad you guys are talking about this," because like. I feel that way, we are always talking about this with our group of guys, and we're like, that's awesome. Because it's encouraging for us, too. So, I mean, you talk about men and iron sharpening iron and stuff. It's like, we're not right about most of the stuff that we say, probably. But we can confidently come out and have an honest and, open conversation about it, knowing that other people will be comforted by knowing that the conversation is just happening.
Yeah, no. At the end of the day, humbleness, right?
Yeah.
Humility.
The more we can, just being humble in whether it be those deer or those moments or whatever. That was the patience thing I was talking about. How do we do that? Still have the conversations you have, but I do some stuff on my podcast that I get just to click a bunch of buttons and get some likes and clicks and whatever. And,
heck yeah.
Do I think Higgins is a little nuts with some of his views? Yeah, but I also know that he watches zero social media on what he does. So, like, he won't know this unless Terry or somebody sends him this, or Wes or somebody. And Wes doesn't even like social media, but like, I buy a lot. I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars between for Real World and Don's stuff, whatever. So if I'm giving these guys crap, it's true. And it's my opinion, and I still spend my money with them.
Sure.
I don't work out, so I'm not buying any birthday cake from Bomar stuff. But at the end of the day, I think the The funny part is, and the
no nose
respect
button
and the
for
humber.
You? No nose button for you?
What?
I said no nose button on your crossbow?
No, because Lee Lukowski used to make the greatest nose button, man. He had this little thing that he would do to bows and tweak them, and he would have a non-movable nose button.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I don't care if you got 15 nose buttons on there, as long as you're anchored in the same spot, your money.
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
Well, guys have been doing that for a long time, right? The nose button started as just a piece of cord that people would tie around it.
Yeah, I mean extra serving and stuff.
Yeah, my bow tech Tim was like, he's like a pessimist by nature. He's like not impressed as far as the nose button. He didn't come up with that.
Chris, I wanted to ask you.
Well, there's lots of that,
Sure.
Chris, I wanted to ask you just because obviously going through that heyday and your eye for kind of breaking the mold and creativity in the content sector. I mean, I don't know how much you pay attention to it now from a connoisseur standpoint, but like, what is your take on hunting content? Because I can't even say TV anymore with the way it's been. But like, what's your take on how hunting content is in today's society?
Yeah, I really wish somebody would have came and take my spot, so I don't feel guilty that I have to come back. I mean, that's the super honest.
You feel like
right?
You have to come back.
Yeah, because no one filled my spot, man. There was nobody coming up. Like, I really felt that I was removed. Someone would fall in my spot.
Never happened.
And they would push the limits. Everybody literally found out what happened to me. And I had all these TV guys. The ones that reached out went, holy crap, thank you for bringing this to light. I'm not traveling this November. I'm going to go through my old library to make sure every tag was done. Because foils had got smoked, and just all these people got smoked, and I was just the biggest fish, and I was in a perfect situation to not have money to fight it. They had me dead to rights, and I told them the truth. And at the end of the day, I told them the truth, and they still hunted me for a year. Was that my mistake? Nah, dude, it turned out great. That's a fun story, right? But I think the big deal was how you approach it. And I really wish somebody would have stepped up, and they didn't. Into protect mode. And at the same time they went into protect mode, those sponsors were so excited that I had screwed up, because I just opened up $600,000 for revenue.
Well, the
$600,000. Now I spent all of it. It was my first big year. I was actually going to go back to more of an arrow flexion style, shooting stingrays and squirrels and crap. And I was just about ready to cash in for my first time ever. I was going to get married and be in North Carolina, and I was going to cash in for $300+ grand of the budget that I normally spent. I wasn't going to the Vermejo, and I had done everything I wanted. And it was literally my year to cash in. And when everything happened. Yeah. So no one stepped up. Everybody pulled back. Everybody got scared. The industry people just, as you would know, Jeremy, that it was like bang, bang, bang. All these left. It was a big situation, a bunch of buyouts. Everything kind of dropped down. It was the perfect timing of the perfect storm. I was a scapegoat. Everybody pulled back in, and then outdoor TV, at first, like Chris, the Kiefers and all these production guys were like, oh my God, we got to do like a Bryant Gumbel Brackett frickin' sit down like this is gonna be the greatest. None of them ever did it. Right. Waddell Cole was like, will you be on my podcast? I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'd be on these guys' stuff, but I wouldn't really, I was like, I can't talk about it till July 15th of 2022 or whatever. And but no one stepped up, man. And outdoor television is crazy because they have all lost the romance. If you guys want to do a TV show, I could teach you how to shoot it. I'm not saying that you guys don't, but I could take a person that came to me and said, I got this money, and I go, they're all missing the boat. They all want to use all these different cameras. And if you shout, there was a reason why Shockey and my on every fan favorite, and that was because the camera never stopped rolling. If you could flow a camera and back to the animal and back to your hunter, and it was down the arrow or down the gun, in his case muzzleloader, you won the game, man. there was a non-recreative thing, and now everybody's got a DSLR and a DSLR. And
Yeah.
anybody remember when I did arrow affliction with a freaking HC30 Sony that weighed 7 or 8 pounds taped to my bow? Oh, that was light years before a GoPro or a Verb was ever done, and I still was able to shoot lights out. And so the funny part is when these guys, if you guys went to the crossbow bow thing, I was going to tell you what I normally tell these guys, that if I'd be in a restaurant or a bar or at a function, they'd be like, I'll bet you I can outshoot you. Hey, grab your bow. And I would put up with it for a little bit and I would just literally say, why don't you grab your bow? I got $1,000. Get me 12 shots with your bow and I will whoop your ass with your own bow. And I would do it and no one ever took me up on it. But that was always the way to shut them up. But I wish somebody would have taken my spot, man. They still haven't. But maybe that's where we're going.
Well, honestly,
you know what I mean? Like,
Chris, I think the spot kind of like it faded away too. Cause like with your exodus, like when that all was happening, that was also like in our eyes, kind of like the death of like, you know, network outdoor television. Like, yeah, they're still there and I don't want to discredit, you know, guys that are there, but like, dude, today, I don't know what the number is, but 40 to 60% of like the outdoor industry marketing budget is probably getting paid to people we've never heard of, like on Sportsman Pursuit Channel or whatever. And that to me, and I'm not the only guy, I'm just a 30-year-old guy and I consume like Instagram and TikTok and YouTube for the most part. That stuff doesn't even exist to me. Like in my world of like consuming outdoor media, like it's not there. It's not real. It's like, and that leaves me frankly with a fairly limited pool of media to look at. It's like, there's guys I think that do it well. You mentioned Waddell. Bone Collector's done a fairly good job of adapting some of their stuff to YouTube and stuff. Waddell's got his podcast. That's great. Heartland Bowhunter, I think, has always done a nice job from production standpoint. You mentioned the Bowmars. They've got, you know, your Chris B's, your Sequans, you know, these are the guys that have adapted. They're all younger guys too, to a generation here where we're consuming it like this. You know, people who are listening to this podcast are probably in the same boat for the most part. They're 25 to 45-year-old guys who are like, yep, this is, you know, it's your podcast. And like, what else is there for me to get, you know? And it's kind of depressing.
They handpicked you.
Yeah, they handpicked. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you're getting to a la carte handpicked now. You know, before you got to just,
what was on when you turned the TV on,
whatever,
or you recorded?
Whatever was on.
Yeah, that was it,
dude.
man.
You were watching it.
You were watching it. That was it. You were force-fed. Like,
Whitetail Wednesdays. Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how the market worked. Was the only reason that a lot of these people had me around was, you know, I didn't realize till later that it wasn't about, like, I'm a fair trade guy. Like, I'm like, hey, listen, I got these numbers and I've got these social media. They're all organic and I've got this. And what do you want to see? And they would make me shop them so hard, bro. And then what really happened is that a Mossy Oak needed me. And when I say needed me, it's not in anything but a business sense, where they needed a person in my position that had a connection with like a Mossy Oak, needed somebody in a scent lock position, because when Vertigo and Mossy Oak split in a bad breakup, I was scent locks guy because Pat and Andrews and Mike died and Nick took over and I was their guy. I was the only one that really had the balls
remember
to go
that.
in there
I can
to a meeting.
In my eye, Chris, I can remember the commercial where it rack focused to your face, you know, and who else did they do? They did Waddell and Munt. Who else was on the
those guys were after me, but there was a big move before Pat Hyland and the guys came in there and bought it. It was Andrews and Greg. Greg that owned it forever, that started it. Starts S. Golly, I can't believe that I haven't said that name though in 10 years. So they all did such a great job, but the problem is like there were advancements in that old suit. And so I walked in with an Under Armour this and a this and this, and I put it all down. I said, this is going to make the perfect suit. We made the Fear No Evil suit. It was like the Beastie Boys, man. It was too early for its time. And so we went that thing, and now they've got suits that are made exactly after that. And so they loved my passion so much, and I was hitting enough eyeballs that they made suits that I wanted and that then the consumer wanted. And it was before all the cool stuff now. And, but those guys did a deal with Mossy Oak that just kind of exploded in both their faces, which was this Vertigo. But what I really didn't realize about the industry and the money that was traded and support teams of it was what the Mossy Oaks really needed was the licensing from ScentLock.
Yeah.
What ScentLock really needed was the advertising dollars from that. And I was just this pawn in the middle that got to go to the meetings and got to go to I had to pay for my own hunt, the Vermejo and whatever, and this and that. And the whole time I'm going, ooh, I get my dream. Oh, this is great. Oh, I get my little 50 grand. Okay, guys. And they're all making all the money.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize any of this. And now that I'm on the other side going, I'm not doing that again. Like I'm not doing that again. So that leads up to what some of the stuff you're talking about. And Jeremy, you were in the middle of some of all that, and you know that that's the truth. But there was a lot of us that didn't know that that's how it worked.
Well, and I didn't know either when I walked into it, right? I mean, I had no idea what I was walking into. I walked into it pushing the digital side of it when traditional still was the gorilla in the room, which was difficult as hell. But it was because I was hoping that I saw where the wave was going. And so to be it for a lot of that, Chris, I was on the side that was like a minuscule budget, which is so funny because today it's 90+% of the budget. And so, you know, I was fighting over crumbs watching. I mean, dude, I was at every Golden Moose Award show that you were winning. Like I was there. I was in the stands, right? I was watching it. It was the heyday.
There's a drunk guy in the back.
Yeah, I was in the back. I was like, "Oh, Chris Brackett, boo!"
Full Metal Brackett.
But you know that turn, and I mean, what's so crazy about it? And Jared was working for me that when it flipped, that switch hit so fast that I don't think the industry's ever recovered from it. Like we still today don't have an identity anymore.
Well, dude, how quickly did those Golden Moose Awards die? Was it a matter of like 2 years? It was just like done. It's over. It went from like the biggest thing to like
I can't even remember
nobody
when
goes.
the last. I mean, it was way before. Was it 2018 or 2018? Maybe was the last like real Golden Moose Awards.
Dude,
Not
there wasn't. We won the last ones that took place like literally one was during the day, and it was just the producers, and we like won best audio and best something else, and I was like, ooh, great. Half the people didn't even go. I think we just picked up our trophies, and then later at night it was like some type of cocktail thing, but they only did like 5 awards, and the last one was the one that we won. The last big one was the one that we won something big, and that was the one where Trump spoke after, or I won best new show or something.
Was that when
literally
was Big and Rich played?
No, that was
no, I think that might
or Fogarty. Fogarty played it one. Big and Rich played it. I thought Big and Rich did the one with Trump. Maybe I thought.
Well, the one that Zach Brown did, that was the one where we traded airtime for Zach to play.
Correct.
And then when we split, my ass was in the back with you. No, I was way in the back. They didn't have a chair for me.
Standing room only.
And
back
Zach
there.
was up front, and then he played that night. And then the crazy part is that everyone realized at the Outdoor Channel that all the stories I had about how, Zach was so famous that you can't control. I watched 2 of my friends go to the 20, 30, $40 million club, and I watched them change into like that lawyer movie Devil's Own. Like they're experimenting with how much stuff they can get away with, and don't have anybody here look Mr. Brown in his eyes type thing, and it was like, whoa, Jeff Wayne and these other people were literally like, hey man, we're real sorry for treating you like garbage for 3 years. We realized that it wasn't you. Welcome back. And then the next year we were up in front, and then and it was, then we won that award. But the greatest award was when Waddell was the host, and he gave away every award. And when Craig Morgan, because he's a really pretty good friend, we've been through a lot together. So Craig all of a sudden walks out, and to present the next award, Mr. Craig Morgan, and Craig walks out, and I looked at my row and I went, we won this one because they're not going to let Waddell give me the award, because him and T-Bone were talking bad about me on internet when it first started. And I just did a Chris Brackett move and went, I don't give a shit where you're from in Booger Bottom, but the way we do it here is I'll meet you out back behind behind the school and beat your ass. And so I literally challenged him to a cage match on social media and blew up. And Matt Jury still looked at, I forget who he was talking to, and Matt Jury goes, yeah, that guy might be crazy, but he's a genius. And you knew how I was, maybe because I told Waddell I'd kick his ass, and then Waddell agreed to it. And then Waddell had the other guy, Jim Schiffelbein, and Jim Schiffelbein had a meeting with my wife, and we were setting up the whole damn thing. Jim told Jody she was going to be a ring girl, and I didn't go out to the bars. I had hired a security guard to keep people off me. It was one of my buddies, but he was security, but it was more like to keep just to keep things cool, because if I was by myself, people would want to say stuff, and I didn't want to get in a fight. And it was in Nashville, and I didn't go out, and I was at we just went to the downstairs, and the craziest part is that we were in this giant beef, Bone Collector and Chris Brackett, whatever, Aeroflexion, Fear No Evil at the time, both of them. And we were all at breakfast together, and I was late to breakfast, and my guy, and he had brought a bouncer, and I had brought a bouncer, and they were sitting there, and my wife and them was like, well, there they are. And we were just going to keep, it was pretty damn heated. It was pretty ridiculous for the Outdoor Channel. Like, you'd have thought we were, I don't know, WWF. This is stupid as shit, but it's funny to talk about now. And Waddell would probably laugh, and he's like, yeah, I would have beaten, I'd have been like, yeah, I'd have been his ass. And they were all at breakfast, and I came walking down. Well, this is the craziest part. My security guard, like, this guy's like 6'7", 330, jacked, yoked out. A guy that looks like his twin. Now this Jim Schiffelbein and me, we're all from Illinois, within an hour or two of each other.
Oh, yeah.
So Jim brings a guy from up north, just south of Chicago, up north, LaSalle. He brings a guy and they're sitting like back to back, 2 booths away. And they look like cookie cutters. 2 guys, 2 Marines. One's my guy, one's my bouncer, one's Waddell's bouncer. They're all eating. I'm late. And I walk, the 2 bouncers hugging each other. And I'm like, what is going on? And those 2 ended up being Marines together. And my guy taught the other guy how to do what they're doing, bouncing and stuff. And I'm like, well, this is stupid. And I'm like, that's the guy you guys know that you're here for each other, right? He's like, oh, well, nothing's going to happen with us. And then that's when we met Schiffelbein at the bar while Waddell was out on the Nashville scene. And the crazy part is Jared heard this. My wife will stand here, right here next to me, and go, yep. Hey, tell him about this part. And it's WWE, dude. And it's the funniest shit ever. It literally is the funniest stuff that you've ever heard in your life.
But dude, that was
little intricate little stories.
That was the show scene. Like ATA and SHOT Show were like, I mean, it was wild. And like, I still go. It's painful anymore. Like ATA this year, I don't know, man. It's depressing, which I hate because I love the archery industry. That show was everything, to your point when you were like, man, this is all I want to be. When I walked into that show with my own business to do marketing in the archery industry, it was everything I ever imagined it being.
We're going to go this year, right?
Probably.
Maybe for a day or 2?
Yeah, probably.
I'll go with you.
Truthfully,
we'll
go with you.
Yeah.
1,000%.
For
1,000%.
Honestly,
it's in St. Louis. We might get shot, but,
This may be the first year that, like, I feel like going out of, like, obligation to just to other people. Like, I used to go because it was, like, I wanted to take something from it, Well,
I want the industry to survive, man.
They'll still give me a press room, dude. We will go and have whoever in there and do whatever. We'll do a live Hunter Land Life collab, dude, and we'll just have everybody. Everybody wants to talk to me.
There you go.
They don't know I'm not going to punch them in the face anymore.
We're past that stage.
You're past it. I'm not going to punch you. Like my wife might. No, she's pretty feisty. She's like those little white rabbits that attack people on Monty Python, man.
It is cute. Like if I have a concern, and it's why I kind of asked about the content question, and it ties into the industry side, is like I remember how strong, and again, at the grand scheme of things, we were small. Like it sounded awesome. We were still a small industry.
We pack it all into one place. It feels big.
But if I look at how I feel about the industry now, man, I'm concerned because there was that like just that funnel of unity and even differences amongst you and Bone Collector and whoever. Like everybody was in there because there was just it was just a powerful, like thriving community. And now when I walk into quote ATA show, like it's like ghost town.
Yeah.
And it's scary
Well,
because where's it going?
It's not that I don't think those people are out there. It's just like, financially it doesn't make sense for them to be there, like business wise. It's not where their buyers and stuff are at. It's the show has become irrelevant from that standpoint. It's not a business show anymore.
Right. But I mean, like what I haven't understood, and I mean, we've complained to ATA about this in the past, is like, dude, anymore, like it used to be, yeah, I need to talk to my dealers and stuff. Now it's like,
we just want an excuse to get together.
The end consumer is the buyer now, right? You don't have to go sell. You just sell direct to them. Like, why aren't they in there? Why aren't they filling the rows up? And like, I mean, dude, it's January. We all just came out of a massive draining time frame of hunting. We're entering this dark winter period. Like, thrive us forward, man.
I bet it would be bigger than any of these other consumer shows now. If they open that up to the public and we could get a solid presence from just industry folks, it'd be packed, and it'd be amazing.
Well, that's where Outdoor Channel and Sportsman's needs to put it on, and then they need to have the podcast around that. Mitch Petrie's a guy that can make that happen. I mean, those guys are looking for an excuse.
We need to have Mitch
do
on
something, but you would have to call it something different.
Yeah.
You have Mitch on. He's he's salt of the earth.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
He reached out. We're gonna follow up with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think could happen fairly easily, and it would be it'd be awesome.
I'd be all about it.
It'd be the right guy. It would be a giant podcast like this of all the people with differing views and the right mindsets, and just, I mean, that energy would feed us through the rest of the year.
Like Jared texts me, hey, you just want to be the first ones to welcome me back or whatever. So like, listen, man, I'm all about knocking down walls, doing whatever. Like I'll lead the surge. I'm not making any decisions or spending any money because I don't have any money yet. But
well, dude, one thing I do want to pursue with you, we'll figure it, like this thermal drone survey type thing between both of our podcasts and a platform to like give factual, like actual numbers and insight. Oh, dude, I'm like a mad scientist on this thing.
We're in, buddy. Yeah, you name it. We're in on Chris Brackett. So, yeah, if you're there's stuff you want to do, we're all about it. And I told you with the podcast and stuff, like our setup's not super fancy.
I'm gonna officially say, well, I'm gonna write that down, and you guys are gonna come do more stuff with me.
It's on the record here, buddy. It'll be on the internet.
On the record.
Everything's true on the internet, right?
If we're fans, if you guys were fans, I want to officially apologize for being out of pocket, out of line. And if I was an asshole to you, well, there could have been a reason, but I was still in fault, and I'll take all the blame. I will hold all the stuff on my shoulders. I'm a big guy, and this isn't my home. And I just want to apologize to anybody out there that loved me and you thought I let you down. If I met you in a bar and I was being too brass because I had to be a character for a sponsor or some people or whatever, man, I'm sorry. Like, life's too short to be crazy. Like I still get mad every day at all kinds of people, but I'm broken. Like, we're broken. So I just want to apologize. Like, it's just forgive me. I'd love to have more clients with the Game Changer stuff. I mean, I'm on here, so I might as well. I do Game Changer land management stuff where I come to your farm. I do consults, and I do online stuff through Whitetail Land Life. And I do a podcast, which is Chris Brackett's Land Life podcast on, what are you guys on? Spotify and
Apple.
YouTube
Yeah. Dude, I've watched a bunch of your clips, and I don't know if you, I assume you're kind of like Jared and now you just kind of sit down and whatever's, in the head, you kind of just start going down. I mean, you've got some pretty, stuff that, no, not patting ourselves on the back, that I find attractive from a hunter side. I find on your podcast that I'm tuned into this clip and I'm like, all right, Chris is on to something here. Where's he going with it? All right. There's something here, man.
And then you lost me for a minute. I'm like, okay, now we're back.
We're coming back.
Yeah, I dig it, man. I dig it.
I got to get my, one thing I learned real quick about my mom and the morality of all of us. I figured out that she wants me to do what I love. And I forgot what I loved because it wasn't timing. Everything's in timing. And so even this is in timing. And so for me I realized that I loved sharing. I love telling my crazy stories and, my molecular structure of the deer and how I visualize and how I walk through, how the deer walk through the woods or whatever. And I realized I just loved helping people. And I realized that they couldn't shut me up if I just hit record and bought the right production stuff and did it. And so, I don't see the podcast going away. I see it just growing into maybe even a show. Maybe Mitch goes, yo, dude, you already told your story or whatever. Like, we're just waiting for that. Like, hey, I got some sponsor money and there's a lot of sponsors out there right now that I know could benefit that go, okay, all right, you told your story or whatever. Let's make all those hundreds of terabytes of footage that Jared's seen in my closet and go, let's edit those and make this big deal. Hey, if you guys ever want to get real crazy, put Nick to work or whatever. And I would love to take all the seasons of Arrow Affliction, all the seasons of Fear No Evil and get it on YouTube or some channel and just get it so people can see it, because they're just sitting in the closet right now getting dust on these drives.
Yeah.
So
heck yeah.
It's one of my missions in life.
Well, dude, I mean,
I appreciate you having me on, man.
I'll say this, dude. Like on behalf of us, not that we're in a place together,
on behalf of
but
HUNTR,
like, on behalf of us, and I think we'll speak for everybody that's listening here. It's like we forgive you. You know what I mean? Like
dude.
apology accepted. From certainly from Jeremy and I's standpoint, and I think having heard this, like, boy, yeah, you've earned forgiveness. So.
Well, and I'll add, not to like bring him into this mix, but Jared and I pay attention to a lot of the comments that we get and stuff. We had Bomar on. We talked to Bomar for a long time. Nothing against Josh by any means, because I think Josh is Josh and Chris Brackett's Chris Brackett. You're very humble to talk to, Chris. And I don't know, we've probably crossed paths in the early mid 2000s, and I probably got the taste of non-humble Chris Brackett.
You got the Booyah Chris Brackett.
Chris Brackett for sure. I got the full chops.
Got the tattoos.
I got the full chops on that one. But I say that because, dude, listening to you talk, it's not an easy thing for people to admit flaws and mistakes. I would say, especially after probably coming, from that Chris Booyah Brackett, background and mindset. But I didn't feel any of this it was just you talking to us. Like, there was no, Chris might have rehearsed that, or he may have said that. Cause there inevitably, dude, will be people that just say, to Jared's point, I can't believe you're giving this guy a platform, or he's a poacher, or whatever. We're all human, right? And for you to just lay it out and say, look, here's the truth, guys. Like, screwed up. Here it is. I don't know. I don't know how people will react to that. People will say what they'll want to say, but I personally feel like, damn, man, like, I feel great about this conversation.
It's
Me
cool.
Too.
It's cool.
You know how it feels like to get it off my chest and like tell it real. And I'm so glad with Jared pursuing it to break down my wall. And I appreciate what you're saying about humbleness. Cool. The cool part is no matter what, I'm gonna go call my mom when we're done with here. I'm gonna see my wife tonight. We're gonna try to get along all night. And I'm gonna try to sell a piece of land. I'm gonna go take care of these clients. I'm gonna go cut up some does tonight to give them to whatever. The great part about where I'm at in my life is you can either get in the truck with me, but the truck's driving to where the truck's driving. Chris Brackett's going where he's going. And when I'm laying on my deathbed or when I'm taken out of this world, it's going to be just me and Jesus anyway. So it's like, wherever I'm going, you're welcome to get in. But if you're going to have, if you're not going to be there for us to win or have conversations or be open, we're probably not going to get along. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate anybody that accepts it, sees the change or whatever. But the hard part a lot of times from the comments are like, they I don't know. I think this is to me too. If you pay, I get comments all the time that say like, I'm proud of you. Like, and you're like, well, stand alongside of me, get off your soapbox to like, forgive me. Like, you guys didn't do it, but I'm just telling people if they approach or they listen to this and they comment or whatever, I love it when they stand next to my side like a brother and not stand over there going, I'm proud of you, son. I'm proud
Yeah,
of you. Whatever.
on the high horse,
'Cause-
basically.
Wow, dude, it's just
On
such
the
a
high horse,
it's such
man.
a poor intake. You know, I mean, it's like
Well,
literally.
we can just do better for all of us. Right?
Oh yeah, dude, absolutely. I mean, this world is a shit show right now. Like, I mean, it just is. And you know, selfishly, part of this podcast that we do, not just the Chris podcast, but all of this stuff is. And you said it earlier, Chris, about the nostalgia of kind of things that we do. Dude, my most fond memories in life are from deer camp with my dad and my grandpap and my cousins and my uncles and the conversations. And, you know, I've got old school videos that, you know, just by myself, usually every November, I'll watch hours of like shitty film. But to take myself back into those things is a really strange place. And I'm searching for that now. When you say like, what you know, why do you hunt? Why do you do things? I've struggled with it over the last decade. You know, in terms of why do I hunt? I'm looking for that, and it's hard. I don't know where I find it. I don't find it in many places. I find it at Kansas Deer Camp. You know, I find it in certain places hunting with my kids, but it's very far out of reach in everyday life.
You are so blessed to be in that spot because that's the journey spot. The journey spot is the best spot because when you get to the end, you look back and the journey spot. It's like you reliving that, brother, that's where it's at. So like you guys have a home at any of my farms or any of my places, come bring the kids this summer, catch fish, stay at the Airbnb and whatever. But I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, we appreciate it, dude. Very much.
Right on.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Muddy and Stealth Cam trail cameras.
Cell cams. What an evolution the industry has seen, and we've experienced personally over the past 5, 10, you know, whenever cameras were invented, right? It's like, man, it's totally changed the way that we inventory deer, pattern deer, and ultimately the decisions that we make when we're going out to hunt. They're a serious piece of the puzzle, and you know, that information is invaluable for us. We trust the Muddy and Stealth cams, you know, together to be able to collect any of that information.
Yeah, I mean, as an admitted trail cam addict, you know, I've definitely been guilty of underhunting places or relying too heavily on that information that's come in. That said, it's an invaluable tool to the overall management plan and strategy that I have for my own properties or even hunting public land. It doesn't matter. We have a finite amount of time in going out and hunting. So when you and I are after a particular class or quality of deer, usually a mature buck, we can't waste time hunting an area where that deer doesn't exist. And those cell cams provide that information that allow us to spend the time in the area with the highest chance to accomplish our goals.
Say it all the time, man. You can't kill them if they're not there.
That's it.
So right now, any of our listeners can use code HUNTR20 to get 20% off either Muddy or Stealth cameras. We're certainly going to be taking advantage of that, and we hope you guys do too.
Yep, check out Stealth Cam and Muddy. Chris Brackett, everybody.
5 years later. Yeah, there he is.
Yeah, wow. I mean, we you know, talking about that, and yeah, I mean, seems like a pretty changed guy. You know, and I'm sure, like, I mean, like he said, it took everything from him. Girl, money, job, hunting, guns, weapons, like everything. Wiped him out.
Yeah.
I mean, if that
it's hard to imagine.
If that doesn't, you know, set you on a course to change, I don't know what else would.
Well, you kind of have no choice ultimately. I mean, you're forced into that point. It's boy. I mean, it's got to be rock bottom from that standpoint. I mean, I realize, you know, like you said, with drugs and maybe there's other stuff that physically is could almost kill you. But like, dude, there's whether it was us or some people were for sure like, dude, that's the kind of thing that makes you like kill yourself. Like that is a low point.
I mean, everything you've done your entire life is now taken away from you. And where do you go?
Man, the gravity of that is like should be considered. Like, just it's easy to say like that's a low point. You lost everything, but it's like literally the guy's life was built on like his passion, his dream was to be great at outdoor television and have a lot of success like hunting and like to be in the position he was. He's like, that's the American dream is how he said it. And to not only have it taken away, but to be like essentially shamed or like banished essentially is that's even worse.
What's so hard about it is like you hear the story and I'm like, you know, I almost like want to feel bad for the guy, but like he knowingly did it to himself and he knows that.
Yeah. Pulled the trigger that second time.
So it's like, how do you like, you know, kind of even at the end there, like I appreciate his humbleness now and his transparency in it. You know, you can't feel bad for him. He doesn't feel bad for himself. He did it.
Oh yeah.
He knows it.
Yeah.
And so it's a weird thing. And then like to his point, like, I mean, cause I have been following some of Chris's clips and stuff here on his podcast. Like, where'd he go from here? Can you make a comeback? Can you come back into this thing? What are people going to watch this? Like, we clearly have talked to Chris. We see this, we hear the story. We believe he's a changed guy. Clearly people that watch this are still going to say, dude's a poacher.
Sure.
Like, why would you put him on here?
Well,
Broke
I mean,
the law.
yeah, we all need to like probably just get off of our high horse and like stop acting like we've never done anything wrong.
Sure.
And just, you know, admit that we all do, you know, we've all done wrong stuff. Like we've all made mistakes and, you know, knowingly or unknowingly, you know, the reality is like, I don't think Chris cares, you know, he's moved on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he had a sincere apology there, but now moving forward, it's just like, you know, whether you believe him or don't believe him, you know, fine. Like he said, Chris Brackett's going where Chris Brackett's going, and
which I kind of love.
I love it. I mean, yeah,
I'm intrigued.
We're not doing this for anybody else's affirmation either. You know, I mean, it's, you know, and hopefully, you know, we don't make a mistake like that, you know, in the position even that we're in with the eyes and stuff. But
yeah, I mean, you know, obviously he got made an example of who he was. Do you think it was too harsh?
Well, I mean, personally, and I have a lot of respect for like law enforcement and stuff. Obviously, I think laws are important, and the people that enforce them are, you know, whatever. But I think there's a lot of looking at people like Chris Brackett as big bucks. I mean, he's 200-inch deer. You know what I mean? And they're going to hunt him.
Can we take him down?
To the point where, I mean, how many other guys in the state did probably the exact same thing or way worse that, like, you know, who cares? You know,
Right.
or it's just we're not going to catch him anyways. So, I mean, that's the responsibility that comes with having a platform, and we
Sure.
have that responsibility.
We talked about that not long ago. I mean, in all reality, like I wanted to get a thermal drone to go find that buck I hit, you know, a month ago, and the reality is it's illegal. And had I not had this platform, yeah, I probably would have did it.
Yeah.
You know, what are you gonna do? Write me a fine? Okay,
Who's
but
going to know?
But I found my buck. Even if you caught me, you write me a fine. I found my buck. In fact, Yoder's like, man, I kind of wish you did it because then maybe we take
We
this
can find
to
out
court
if it is actually legal or
yeah.
not.
But like the reality is of having this podcast and being who we are, like I can't, man. There's a giant target on my back. Like they're not going to just find me. They're going to make an example of me.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily blame them. Like, you know, if eyes are on us,
And
they
I'm
make
not
an
even a
example
booner, Nick. I mean, you know, Brass
Yeah.
gets a
Pope
200.
and young at best.
Maybe. Jeez, but yeah, it's a weird situation there. I do want to have Chris back at some point, or whether it's ATA, like this discussion in the industry and the content. I wanted to hear his story, so that's kind of what this was about, and really Chris telling us what is Chris Brackett, where is he, but the side of the industry and what Chris has gone through, very intimate knowledge of that, and now what it is today, where it's going. There's a big discussion around that, and it's not everybody listening to this is going to necessarily be in the industry side of it, but on the content side of it, like how we are consuming content. What is content? What is the future of that stuff? Because content doesn't get made without money, right? And what are these sponsorships look like? They don't look like the $100,000 deals Chris Brackett got to make awesome content to put on network TV. It's 5s here, 3s here, free product there. At some point, there's going to be a clash, I think, that there won't be great content unless the industry changes how it starts to invest in that content.
Well, I mean, I think if there's a demand for it, people will find a way to, make it make sense. You know what I mean? It's like, just there's people that loved it. Like, we do the podcast because we like you said, we're having these conversations anyways. Like, and we don't do it because people are paying us to do it. We do it, that's what, we do it for.
I guess I'm thinking like hunting content. And I know like hunting public does it and they make money from YouTube and these, but first of all, that could be risky. We don't know how long that's going to last. And they do have sponsors. Like there are sponsors that back hunting public that pay them to do stuff.
Well, at the end of the day, finances are a necessity of, of life. And if you're going to run it as some sort of a business, which
it's why the heyday of the outdoor network and content was so great is there was money flowing into it to these producers like Brackett to make awesome content. To make Waddell and Lee and Tiffany and Drury's and all of these guys The reason we had that is that they were making money. Those guys aren't making money like they used to. It's gone.
Oh, definitely.
And so with that is a sacrifice of this content. Now, there's other avenues. YouTube, we're doing it right now, and these other places. But yeah, I wonder how long we can do, because you and I talk all the time. It's like, and it's not saying that people don't make great content, but I watch a lot of YouTube content and then it's gone. Like, what else do I watch now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm waiting for stuff to come out. It doesn't seem like there's enough to feed the beast, basically.
Yeah. I don't know. I could sit and be constantly entertained by. I mean, I did for a long time. I would sit down, every Monday when Midwest Whitetail would drop, and then I would, Growing Deer would drop on Tuesday, and I would go, whatever it was, and I would in between I could stockpile it with all of the in between, and it's dried up. The money's dried up. The network model has kind of dried up. We've somewhat transitioned to like a digital age, and there's, we're out here making content, as are several other guys, this podcast, other guys are still making shows and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it's here. It's just kind of, I don't know. Yeah, it seems like we kind of need like a revival, and
maybe that's what we call it, Nick. Call it the revival. Bring it back.
Yeah.
It would be cool as shit, man. If we brought a consumer show that was like ATA with the right companies, with the right personalities, and you've opened the doors to the end consumer, the bow hunter.
It would be awesome. But it is tied to the conversation that we have around access and around.
Just from a community standpoint? You mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
so the conversations that we have a lot are around, this legislation that's getting passed, the access issues or possibilities that exist. Like, all of these things here, I think is a direct reflection of kind of like the state that we're in with the industry as well. Mm-hmm. So I hope at the end of it, there's something healthy from an industry standpoint and from a content consumption model. I guess all we can do in the meantime is keep talking.
Yep, we'll keep producing. So, anyways, we appreciate you listening to episode 161 with Chris Brackett, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Later.
Take me